Part 69. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 708. Madada didn't understand what Su Tong's praise was, but now he just wanted to smash this boy's spirit into meat patties. I call your Yuan Shen Han Fei Sanzhen. The huge palm covers the sky, leaving people with nowhere to hide. Su Tong's heart trembled, but he was not afraid. In the end, this was just a ray of Godhead separated from Madada, not his complete Godhead. Although he was dragged into the Buddha statue as his soul, he was not necessarily afraid. Facing the big palm of the sky in front of him, Su Tong called out the props book, unsheathed the pure yang sword, and the golden incense merit covered the blade, and stabbed towards the big hand of the sky. Although there is a gap between Yuan Shen and evil God, he has a large amount of incense and merit in his hands, which is his biggest reliance. Boom! Madada didn't know the origin of this kid, and he didn't expect that even after Su Tong's soul was pulled close to the Buddha statue, his fighting power would not be reduced at all. The pure yang sword was the nemesis of evil spirits in the world. He was caught off guard, and Su Tong's palm was suddenly struck by Su Tong. Tong Yujian pierced through. Su Tong's body was like a white rainbow piercing through the palm of his hand. He waved his sword and struck Madada in the face. The 10-foot-long sword energy caused a 100-meter-long wound in Madada's face. That's it? Su Tong raised his eyebrows, feeling that this evil god was not that good. But before he had time to be happy, he looked back abruptly, his heart suddenly thumped, and his mind instantly went cold. I saw that the split face in front of me gradually split, giving birth to two identical faces. Not only that, this face continued to split. Madada's face began to blur, and gradually only a pair of huge eyeballs remained, suspended around itself. It's interesting that you, a mortal, actually stole the incense from the gods. But mortals are mortals after all. Compared with gods, your power is too small. Madada's figure gradually turned into nothingness, or it could be understood as the sky in this field. There is no specific body shape, but it is everywhere. At this time, Su Tong suddenly felt a strong feeling of stepping on the air under his feet, and then his body seemed to be dragged into the depths of darkness by a huge force. How can you understand the power of the gods? In the darkness, everything will be destroyed. The huge cold snort was like bursts of piercing thunder, shaking Su Tong's spirit to the point of cracking. The surrounding power was getting stronger and stronger. No matter how much Su Tong continued to release incense and merit, it was of no avail under this power. Are you going to die? Su Tong secretly screamed in his heart. He was not afraid of death, but the way of annihilating both body and soul made him feel a lot of unwillingness. At least Lilith still cooked a meal for him. He quickly thought about whether there were other ways to escape. Suddenly he felt like waves of burning sensation in his hand. At first he didn't know what it was because he didn't have anything in his hand, but the burning sensation became stronger and stronger. What's this? Su Tong opened his palms, which were empty, but the burning feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Looking at this hand, Su Tong couldn't help but think of the sloppy Taoist priest he met on the street that day. He vaguely remembered that when the other party drew the ghost talisman for him, he seemed to have slapped the talisman on his hand. Could it be? I don't know why, but I associate these two things together, but the burning feeling in my palms is getting stronger and stronger, as if something is about to come out, but I can't find a way out. Instead, my palms are swollen red and painful. Seeing this, Su Tong didn't know what was going on. He saw that his body and soul were completely destroyed at that moment. He didn't care. He called out the prop book and grabbed the stained paper talisman in his hand. Superior. As soon as the paper talisman touched Su Tong's palm, the power that was about to explode in his palm seemed to have found an outlet and poured into the paper talisman. Boom! A shocking thunder exploded from the ground. I saw a purple thunder falling from the sky. In an instant, everyone's souls trembled. Even Mu Tiantong, who had already left Ziwei Palace, couldn't help but tremble. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the thunder that left purple light in the sky. The hair all over his body stood upside down, and his head was covered in cold sweat in an instant. Zixiao Divine Thunder! The Heavenly Master has come down from the mountain. Mu Tiantong screamed inwardly. He will never admit his mistake. The world's Taoist magic has dragons and tigers, and the first of thunder magic is the Tianqi talisman. It was not just Mu Tiantong who was shocked. All the enlightened people in the world were so frightened by this thunder that they broke out in cold sweat. Even the eldest princess, a monster who could reverse life and death, couldn't help but feel the urge to escape when she saw the lightning fall. The Earth Immortal who has accomplished great feats of slaying. The eldest princess trembled in her heart. She did not expect that there was such a terrifying person in this world. When you become enlightened, you can be called a heavenly being, but you are still a human being after all. But the Taoist Empress can be called an earthly immortal. At this time, she is no longer a human being, but an immortal, a real earthly immortal. Turn your hands to become clouds, turn your hands to become rain, exhale to become wind, and shout like thunder. Under a tomb on the outskirts of the city, a burst of curses could be heard. Oh my God, has this old Taoist priest really gone down the mountain? The thunderbolt was like a giant purple dragon, striking directly at the Buddha statue in Mingtang. The Buddha statue that Su Tong could not hit with his fist was now like tofu under the light of lightning and was split into pieces on the spot. The moment the Buddha statue exploded, two rays of light, one black and one white, escaped from the Buddha statue. It is the ray of divine nature of Su Tong himself and Madada. If you want to run away, there is no way. Su Tong Yuanshen flew away, holding something in his hand. Everyone could not see clearly, but they felt that the golden light was shining brightly, and Su Tong Yuanshen waved. Rumble, rumble. Another thunder struck down. The light was blazing, like a purple mountain falling down, thick and terrifying, making people breathless. Now Madada's deity couldn't sit still, and slowly raised his hand to stop him. Although he barely blocked part of the thunder's power, his arm was blown to pieces on the spot, letting out a painful wail. The remaining power of the thunder continued unabated, and it directly covered the ray of Godhead of Mochuoda. The lightning flashed and almost split his soul to pieces. The figure reorganized in mid-air in embarrassment, and let out a deep roar. Boy, if you dare to destroy my Godhead, I will fight you to the death even if you go up to heaven or to the earth. Go to hell with your fight to the death. When you hit me just now, we were fighting to the death. Su Tong cursed and raised the talisman in his hand, aiming at Madada's spirit and making another thunderous blast. When everyone saw this, their scalps went numb. Where did this kid get the Zixiao talisman? Everyone gasped after seeing what Su Tong had in his hand. But at the same time, the worries in my heart were relieved. Now it seemed that it was not the old heavenly master who came down from the mountain, but the crown prince Li Zheng holding the magic talisman. But then I thought about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I became afraid. Where did this talisman come from? Without thinking much, a divine thunder struck down. This time, the deity of Mo Tuoda in the distance opened his mouth and spit out a black cloud, trying to cover up the secret of the sky so that the divine thunder could not find its target. Although the thunder did not hit, the ray of Mochuoda's divine power passed by him, and the shock almost shattered the ray of divine power. The thunder that God had avoided turned out to be unlucky. Ashina had just broken away from the pursuit of Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai when he was hit on the head by this thunder. At first glance, Ashina's luck seems to be very strong, but in fact, after being hit by the yellow plague, his luck has already become strong on the outside but weak on the inside. This divine thunder is the last straw that breaks Ashina's luck. It's just that what they have is straw, and this should be said to be a truck. Ah! Ashina was almost killed on the spot. Green smoke was coming out of his body, and a large area of his skin turned into charcoal. He looked at it and realized that he probably never dreamed that he would be struck by lightning. Not far away, Lu Ji just struggled to emerge from the black water. Seeing this scene, his face turned gray and he silently dove back down. He is not afraid of death, but he also doesn't want to be struck by lightning. Soul binding. The sound of jingling bells rang in the sky, and the devil bell was held in Su Tong's hand. The bells rang, and the long and lingering sound formed an invisible big hand, taking advantage of the moment when Madada's divine personality had not yet completely gathered, and forcibly detained him in Su Tong's hands. Su Tong then took out the soul coffin and threw it into the soul coffin without waiting for the guy to resist. In the distance, Madada's real body trembled. This was not a clone of him, but a part of his godhead. How could Madada accept this when he was forcibly suppressed by Su Tong, a little ant? But Su Tong is not timid at all. I have the treasure talisman in my hand and I have it all in the world. Today, the King of Heaven is here, and I let him come in vertically and go out horizontally. Seeing the flash of lightning on the treasure talisman on Su Tong's hand, Madada was extremely angry, but he had no choice but to do anything. At this moment, he suddenly heard a Buddha's call in the distance, and saw a figure carrying a 6-foot golden body flying through the sky. It is the great monk Yuan sighed. It turns out that the lightning struck through Madada's palm just now, and this palm was the devil's palm that trapped Yuan Xiang. The palm was pierced, and Yuan Xiang took this opportunity to break out of the air. Knowing that the situation was over, these Madada could only let out bursts of angry roars, and their figures quietly disappeared under the black shadow. At the same time, in front of the tea house outside Luoyang City, an old Taoist squinted one eye, tilted his head and looked at Luoyang City behind him, grinning, "Immeasurable Heavenly Lord, this world can be peaceful for another 200 years. Everyone around heard the old Taoist's crazy words, but no one cared, they just thought it was the old Taoist talking nonsense. With the national power of their great Zhou dynasty, everyone in the world will surrender, even if it takes another 500 years, there will be no problem." The old Taoist finished his tea, took out a piece of silver and put it on the table. "Let's go, it's time to go home." Hey, old Taoist priest, you can't afford this much." When the boss saw such a big ingot of silver, he couldn't make it back even if he sold tea for a year, so he hurriedly shouted to the old man. But the old man looked back and smiled, raised the long sail in his hand, took a gentle step forward, and disappeared without a trace in front of everyone. Now everyone was dumbfounded. The boss held up the ingot of silver and swallowed. "My grandma, this is a real fairy." Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 709. Moda retreated. Even the great protector of the source side also managed to get out of trouble. It all happened so fast that it was dizzying. The eldest princess flew to Su Tong's soul. "Let me see it quickly. The legendary Xiao talisman is so precious. Even the old heavenly master from Longhu Mountain would not be able to make such a talisman easily. In this era, to put it bluntly, this talisman is as terrifying as a nuclear bomb. Fighting the gods above, beating the top of the world. Holding this talisman, even if Su Tong is just a Taoist, is enough to make even the top of the world fear him." Su Tong opened his palm and showed it to the eldest princess. The divine light flashed in his palm, and a magical rune appeared in his hand. The eldest princess watched with wide eyes, but when she saw it, her eyes felt dizzy, her vision was blurry, and she almost fainted. Fortunately, Su Tong noticed something was wrong and hurriedly closed his palms, causing the eldest princess to wake up. A shadow cast over her handsome face, and she almost vomited blood. It turns out that not everyone can read this talisman, just as the fortune teller said that day. This talisman is made of 7, and 49 days of time as a talisman, 99 and 81 heavenly thunders as a pen, borrowing the power of the gods and gods as ink, and named after Tai's Hang Sanking. It is enshrined at the Sanking statue in Longhu Mountain. A talisman that has received incense for 10 years. Intangible and qualityless, rather than saying that it is the Zixiao divine talisman, this treasure talisman is just a mass of invisible and qualityless energy. The reason why it can summon thunder is entirely because the talisman pen that summons thunder is hidden in the torn piece of paper. The eldest princess was not strong enough to look at such a thing that was created by heaven and earth. Instead, she suffered backlash. She almost aroused her inner demons, summoned the demonic barriers in her heart, and set herself on fire. His body softened and he fell into Su Tong's arms. Well, Xiao Zhao will be ready soon. Su Tong narrowed his eyelids. Before he could be happy, he suddenly noticed a black shadow emerging from the black water. Lu Ji. It turned out that the eldest princess had suffered a backlash and lost her vitality. With her whole body weak, the black water also lost control. Lu Ji quickly seized the opportunity and jumped out of the black water. For a moment, instead of running away, he turned around and rushed towards Su Tong's body. Su Tong had ruined his plans time and time again, and now he had ruined his hopes for the Moda cult. At this moment, Lu Ji had only one thought: pull this kid to be buried with him. Seeing this, Su Tong's expression turned cold. He raised his hand and waved the treasure talisman, and a bolt of lightning struck through the air. Boom! Lu Ji was very fast, but no matter how fast he was, he couldn't beat the divine thunder. Everyone only felt the dazzling purple light in front of them, and the next moment, they saw Lu Ji's body standing still, with burnt green smoke emitting from his body. Puff! Large drops of blood continued to scatter on the ground, and soon the piece of bluestone at Lu Ji's feet was stained red. Even though he was in the realm of heaven and man, there was a bit of despair in his eyes at this moment. Looking up, he was only 20 steps away from Su Tong's body, but the distance of 20 steps had already become an insurmountable gap. Lost, lost. I should have killed you back in Yuyang City. Lu Ji was roaring in his heart. Every plan he made was an insidious and cunning trick. The fish demon is causing trouble, so he can use the fish demon's evil name to tear a hole in Yuyang and take advantage of the situation. As a result, Li Zhang picked peaches. He harbored evil intentions and set up a disgusting technique. He quoted the ancient Pei Yuan to make a prophecy, caused the disgusting technique, and sacrificed blood to Yuyang. As a result, Li Zhang summoned ghosts and gods and beat him with 2 sticks for 20 years. I originally lurked in Luoyang to practice meditation. As a result, Li Zhang entered Buddhism. 2 Buddhist poems and his incarnation as a love monk, wind, flower, snow, and moon, invisibly greatly increased the luck of Buddhism. Originally, he was building a plank road openly and secretly to Chenkang, trying to compete with the Buddha for luck, and he was almost going to succeed. Result: Lu Ji raised his head and opened his eyes wide, trying to see Li Zhang's face clearly. Even though he was out of his mind, he was still struggling hard, trying to pull this guy to die together. It's just that the pupils of his eyes have begun to dilate, and everything he sees is blurry, as if he has taken off his glasses with 800-degree myopia. Lu Ji, go to hell. In a trance, a figure suddenly rushed out and headed straight for him. The other party's huge roar echoed in his ears. Are you coming? Lu Ji stiffly raised his hands and grabbed forward. Ah! With a heart-rending roar, Lu Ji's head flew up. Whirring whirring. Looking at the human head that fell to the ground, Zhao Peng held the horizontal knife in both hands and maintained the slashing posture. His face flushed with excitement, the veins on his forehead were bulging, and his heartbeat was about to jump into his throat. Superior! I killed Lu Ji, I killed Lu Ji. Everyone looked at Zhao Peng, who was almost crazy, and everyone had complicated expressions for a moment. Bah, damn, let this guy pick it up. Gao Zhou limped up and got up with the help of Gu Zibai. When he saw Lu Ji's head falling to the ground, he couldn't help but sneered coldly. If he and Gu Zibai hadn't been seriously injured, the honor of killing Lu Ji at this moment would never have been passed on to this wallflower Zhao Peng. I killed Lu Ji, I killed Lu Ji, I. Zhao Peng's expression was already a little crazy, and he killed Lu Ji. From then on, he would be able to leave a mark in history and become famous all over the world. Just when Zhao Peng was so excited that he wanted to pick up Lu Ji's head, he suddenly found that he couldn't move. When he lowered his head and looked down, he realized that Lu Ji's hands were tightly clenched around his waist. The corner of the man's mouth on the ground raised a slight arc, and then he said in a voice like an ant, "Explode." Boom. Dark green flames ignited from Lu Ji's body in an instant, swallowing Zhao Peng together in an instant. This turn of events caught everyone by surprise. Who would have thought that Lu Ji would be so ruthless that he would choose to self-destruct to end himself? No one thought that Zhao Peng would rush forward at this moment and become Lu Ji's entombment. The green flame burns quickly and extinguishes quickly. When the flame dissipates, a wisp of breeze blows up, blowing up the handful of ashes on the ground and completely dispersing them. Apart from the dried blood and stains on the ground, there seemed to be no trace of their existence. Why? Such an ending is ultimately disappointing. Su Tong shook the eldest princess, and when he saw that she hadn't woken up, he lost his patience. He simply glanced around and saw that no one was paying attention. He waved his hand and pushed, throwing the eldest princess back into the black water. Then he put away the virtual and the real. The soul returns to its proper place and returns to the physical body. As soon as he returned to his physical body, an overwhelming pain hit his abdomen, making him gag. It's the effect of Tianjin damage pill that is still continuing. The severe pain made Su Tong's face pale, and he quickly took out A5 spiritual pills for injury reduction and ate it. Then his body could no longer support him and he could only sit down slowly. It happened that the Buddha statue here had been torn into pieces. Su Tong sat down and happened to sit on the lotus platform of the Buddha statue. Amitabha. UN-11 flew close to Su Tong, put his fingers on Su Tong's huge arm, and couldn't help but look solemn. "Your Majesty, you." Monk Yuanzi looked sad and realized that Su Tong's internal organs were as fragile as a 100-year-old man. Su Tong rolled his eyes at the monk. "If I had known that I owed you so much, I would have thrown you into the pit." What these words said made the great monk Yuanzi bewildered. He didn't know when the prince owed him karma. Su Tong didn't explain either. His body was extremely fragile now and he didn't dare to delay at all, otherwise Lilith might really come to invite him to dinner later. After all, this scene has not come to an end yet. Thinking of this, Su Tong quickly took out an object from the props book and handed it to Yuan Xiang. It was the Buddha seed. "This thing was just thrown into the prop book by myself." The prop book also gives explanations of the entries. However, the Buddha seed is a mission item and cannot be brought out of the world of this script, so the content of the entry will not be described in detail. Otherwise, if such an important thing can be taken away, I will forcefully return even if I lose all the gains from this script. The great monk Yuanzi hurriedly took the Buddha seeds, then turned around and said loudly, "The Suantan Dharma assembly will continue." As soon as the words fell, a large number of monks came one after another, took over the positions of the old monks, and continued to recite the Dharma. These monks were the same monks who had refused to come before on the pretext of preserving the Buddhist heritage. Now they found out that the great protector of the source side was out of trouble and Madada had been repelled, so they immediately swarmed over. His righteous and awe-inspiring look was disgusting to watch. Su Tong sat cross-legged, with his palms clasped together, and actually recited the most complex Mahanirvana scripture in Buddhism. Suddenly, a bright Buddha light suddenly appeared behind him, and a huge golden body of Buddha appeared out of thin air behind Su Tong. I don't know if it's because Su Tong's body is so huge at the moment that the Buddha's image behind him is also magnificent. The Buddha burst out with brilliant golden light, which began to spread around with Sutong as the center. For a time, the entire Mingtang was illuminated into a splendor. Anyone who is illuminated by the Buddha's light will feel warm. Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai were irradiated by the Buddha's light, and all the negative things on their bodies disappeared. Skill: Buddha's light illuminates. Spend 300 script points to summon the golden body of Buddha. While the golden body of Buddha lasts, the damage of all Buddhist skills will be increased 3 times, and a purification effect will be produced on all teammates within a radius of 300 meters on the scene, eliminating all negative status on the body. This skill comes from the Bodhi golden fruit given by the 6 Arts Hall, which is also one of the reasons why Sutong dared to eat the Tianjin damaging pill. From chapter 72 of this volume. Such a vast Buddha's light made Sutong sit on the Buddhist altar, as if the real Buddha had come into the world. This has become the most profound image in the memory of all Buddhist disciples. Even many years later, an old monk mentioned the holy scene of this day and specially took out a scroll. In the scroll, Sutong transforms into the Buddha in front of a group of Buddhist monks, while the great protector of the source side stands beside Sutong, with his hands clasped together, which is the protector Vajra. Later, this scroll was taken away by a painter. I don't know the name of the painter. I only know that he is going to a place, a faraway place. It is said that the place is called Dunhuang. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 710. Worship the heaven and the earth. Under the sound of crackling firecrackers, everyone in the imperial post office was filled with joy. Even eunuch Dai Yud wore a bright red satin and pretended to be the master of ceremonies to propose marriage for the two of them. Thanks to the high hall. Sutong sat on the chair and looked at the newlyweds in front of him with a smile from ear to ear. Guo Yi had no parents, especially Sun Yang. As the heir apparent, he naturally deserved to sit in this position. Wife greetings. Guo Yi glanced at Sun Yang in front of him through the hijab, his tall and honest face showing the shyness of a young man. Sun Yang's heart beat like a deer's, and her ears were already red to the base of her ears. Send them into the bridal chamber, eunuch Dai's voice rose 8 times, and everyone coaxed them and pushed them into the room. Although it was not Sutong's wedding, there were many people outside the door sending congratulatory gifts. After completing the wedding ceremony, Guo Yi immediately toasted to everyone. Even the great monk Yuanzi came in person. The great monk Yuanxiang sent a book of boxing, which is a Buddhist method of subduing demons, including boxing techniques and internal training. For Guo Yi, it is no less than a rare treasure. After Guo Yi thanked him quickly, he invited the monk to sit at the head table with Sutong. I believe this is what the great monk Yuanzi would like. Your Majesty, don't you really think about it? As soon as they sat down, the monk took Sutong's arm affectionately, as if he was afraid that he would run away. Sutong knew what the great monk meant. Half a month had passed since the Buddhist Suantan Dharma assembly. My main mission has been completed long ago and I can return, but I can also stay here for 3 months. I am not in a hurry to go back, I plan to wait here. After all, the main mission is completed, but my team building mission is not over yet, and I also want the master to gain more incense and merit. The meaning of the great monk Yuanzi was to invite Sutong to the Daxiakyo temple so that he could extend his life with the help of Buddhism. After all, although the effect of the Tianjin bending pill was purified, the degree of damage to the 5 internal organs was not. It's not that easy to make up for. Many organs in his abdomen are now severely decayed. Fortunately, his physique was strong enough. Anyone else would not be able to sit up from the bed without dying at this time. Su Tongxin accepted this good intention, but after all, he was not from this world, and the team-building task was his purpose. If he followed the great monk Yuanzi to Xiongguo Temple, wouldn't his previous work have been in vain? So after hearing what monk Yuanzi said, Su Tong refused without thinking. Life and death are destiny, wealth and honor are in heaven. I have repaid all the karma I owe you to Buddhism. Monk, please stop bothering me. Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, the great monk Yuan Xiang couldn't stop laughing and said, "You have accepted the Buddhahood of my Buddhism, and you are the destined person of my Buddhism. From now on, everyone in our Buddhism will respect you as venerable." It's a prophet. What the great monk Yuan Bei said is true. After completing the mysterious altar ceremony, I got a prompt from the prop book. Special Mission, Series of Turning Hu into Buddha, Mission 1, Protecting the Buddha, completed. You get the title of a unique series, Turn Hu into Buddha Series 1, Venerable. Transform Hu into Buddha Series 1 Venerable cannot be discarded, cannot be damaged, and cannot be traded. This title is a unique property and cannot be fused. After carrying this title, your status in Buddhism will reach a high level, and you will have extremely high reputation and right to speak within the sphere of influence of Buddhism. Title Skill 1, Dragon Elephant Sutra. It consumes 40 script points. After activation, you can gain the power of the Buddhist dragon elephant. Duration, 30 minutes. Cooling time, 1 hour. All Buddhist skills increased by 1 level. 2 bond. 4 bonds. Note, there is no end to the sea of suffering, and the body is a boat, so you should cross the other side. When Su Tong heard this, he said that he had been deceived. He had boarded the pirate ship of Bald Donkey, and it was difficult to think about it now. In fact, he can't say he likes Buddhism that much, but he can't say he's bored with it either. I don't like it because the reputation of monks in real life is so bad that it feels more like a profession. But if I can't say I'm bored, it's because I have indeed seen some real eminent monks, such as the one from White Horse Temple. If he hadn't cultivated Buddhism to an extremely deep level, how could he say, "Smash the real Buddha and get rid of it, the devil in my heart, this is the truth"? Bai Yuan saw that Su Tong really didn't want to, so he had no choice but not to force it. At this time, Gao Zhou, who was sitting at the next table, suddenly noticed something. He raised his head and glanced outside, then stood up and walked out the door suspiciously. When he walked outside the door, he looked around and said, "Come out, you have my corpse poison on you. As long as you get close to me, I will know where you are." After the words fell, a shadow poked out from the corner. This person is none other than Yuan Shushi. Yuan Shushi walked out of the corner, trying to avoid the sun as much as possible. Obviously, after turning into a zombie body, he has been unable to adapt to the feeling of daytime. Especially when the sun shines on his body, it will make him feel very uncomfortable. Help me congratulate the Crown Prince and Guo Yi. This is my gift to the Crown Prince. Yuan Shushi took out a package from his arms and handed it to Gao Zhou. Gao Zhou took it and saw that it was a Qian model, and the model had been repaired. "Let me go, it turns out you can really cultivate." Gao Zhou's eyes widened and he wiped the center area of the money mold with his fingers. He found that except for the slight color difference, it was almost brand new. "Quickly, come in with me. You have helped him so much. He will definitely thank you." As Gao Zhou said this, he wanted to pull Yuan Shushi in, but Yuan Shushi immediately dodged him. "Please do not." Yuan Shushi lowered his head so that no one could see the expression on his face clearly. "I am a remnant of the Motuo cult. I am not done with the kindness of the marshal and you. What's more, I have betrayed the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince has ignored me. This has already made me extremely ashamed. How dare I betray him on such a happy day? The prince's door will only increase the bad luck." This. Gao Zhou was startled and immediately didn't know what to say. In fact, he wanted to say that we were also friends and you had helped us before. but he didn't know how to explain this to Yuan Shushi. I can't say that you are a miserable ghost, you are a single ghost who has been waiting in front of the drum tower for thousands of years. Besides, Yuan Shushi is not dead yet. Just when Gao Zhou didn't know what to say, Su Tong's voice came from behind, the deceased has passed away, Yuan Shushi is dead, and the bad commander Cao Huazheng can testify that there is no Yuan Shushi in this world, only a miserable man. Your Majesty. Yuan Shushi suddenly raised his head when he heard this, but did not dare to look at Su Tong. Su Tong didn't say much, he just said to Yuan Shushi, gods cultivate good deeds, ghosts do evil deeds and get rid of their own karma. Please have a clear conscience so that you can do it yourself. This sentence may seem incomprehensible to others, but Gao Zhou understands it clearly. This is telling Yuan Shushi the path of future practice. Gods cultivate good deeds and accumulate good deeds, but ghosts and ghosts cannot. Since ancient times, ghosts who have done good deeds have basically had no good endings. There are many truths in this world that are simply unexplainable. Good deeds will be rewarded with good deeds, and that depends on the person. Therefore, the simplest way to practice ghost cultivation is to punish evil with evil. To put it bluntly, use black and white methods to satisfy your own needs. As long as you have a clear conscience, even if you become the biggest evil, it is still a way out. Yuan Shushi was stunned for a moment, nodded, and bowed his hand to Su Tong. Thank you for the reminder, Your Majesty, let's say goodbye. I hope Your Majesty will take care of you. After saying that, Yuan Shushi bowed his hand to Gao Zhou again, then turned and left, disappearing at the end of the street. Has our mission been completed? Gao Zhou handed the money mold in his hand to Su Tong and began to mutter in his heart. Whatever, it's just perfect. Su Tong picked up the money model and looked at it carefully, with joy in his eyes. This thing is a treasure. What kind of monsters will he encounter in the future? He casually put it in his prop book and took Gao Zhou back to continue eating wine. Not many days later, the saint ordered Zhongshu to issue an imperial edict to Su Tong, promoting Su Tong to Guanglu Doctor. He was also given the title of County Duke. Although Dr. Guanglu is an idle civil servant with no authority and no specific tasks, he is indeed a second-rank official. The most important thing is that he was also knighted. Even if he is just a county prince, he still has a legitimate title. At his age, even if he has the status of a relative of the emperor, being able to reach the second rank of officialdom is almost unparalleled. Unless he has great merits, this will be the case in his life. At this point, Su Tong was ready to return, but before leaving, he still had something to do, such as paying homage to the grave of Master Gu. Nowadays, on the road down Mang Mountain in Gubei, Huang Chen is old and has become a hero. His unparalleled fame will be put to good use. I once wrongly blamed God. There is a peach grove far away at the foot of Bamang Mountain. This is the manner given to Hunchenjian by the saint himself. The Hunchen prison is so special that it is passed down from generation to generation between master and apprentice, father and son, and everyone has a specific position after death. This location is not suitable for anyone who wants to be buried. There are heavy soldiers guarding the area. If someone dares to find someone stealing a corpse or a tomb, according to the laws of the Great Zhou dynasty, he will be punished with death, ranging from beheading to being chopped in half. Su Tong came along, carrying a pot of wine and a roast goose. The soldiers guarding the cemetery also knew Su Tong's identity and let Su Tong in without further questioning. After finding Gu Peiyuan's grave, Su Tong squinted his eyes and took a closer look, and found that someone had already arrived first. It's you. When Su Tong saw the woman, he couldn't help being surprised. The woman was none other than Gu Peiyuan's young disciple, Nai Haitang. According to Lao Bai, Zhao Peng stabbed Nai Haitang to death in order to join Lu Ji's section. This incident made him sigh for a while, but he did not expect to see Nai Haitang alive today. It turned out that Zhao Peng's sword at that time, although it penetrated the chest, avoided the vital point. Nai Haitang fell into a coma at the time, but was later rescued. It was only after I woke up that I realized that senior brother Zhao Peng was dead. Moreover, the saint decreed that records about Lu Ji be erased, so the news of his senior brother's death was also erased. After learning the news, Nai Haitang fell seriously ill, his cultivation level fell directly from that of Grand Master, and he suffered from heart problems. It was today that the weather was nice and I came to visit my master and senior brother's grave. Unexpectedly, I met Su Tong. Nai Haitang looked back at Su Tong and suddenly became wary. Don't worry, this is Yosai's cemetery. I'm not crazy enough to open a coffin and dig a grave. Besides, your master and I are old friends. I always have to pay homage to him. Su Tong waved his hand to signal Nai Haitang to be at ease. At the same time, with a flash of his eyes, Chi Men opened his life eye and saw that Nai Haitang's luck was still in danger. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 711. Why is there still a calamity? This unlucky girl has done so many evil things in her previous life. Su Tong looked at Nai Haitang's strength and frowned for a moment. He saw that she had 3 catastrophes intertwined with each other, one catastrophe after another. The last catastrophe was a catastrophe within a catastrophe, a fatal link that was difficult to untie. Even if he had the intention to save her, he might still be doomed. Your Majesty, if you can put aside the past grudges, Haitang is here to apologize to the Crown Prince on behalf of Master and Senior Brother. Nai Haitang bowed down and saluted Su Tong. Seeing this, Su Tong hurriedly ran away. He couldn't bear this gift. Seeing this, Nai Haitang couldn't help but look sad. Is it possible that the prince is still unhappy in his heart? If so. Nai Haitang lowered his head and took out a dagger from his sleeve. If this is the case, the Crown Prince can kill Haitang, just to make the Crown Prince get rid of the bad breath in his heart. Nai Haitang is indeed an extremely smart woman. She knows that Su Tong will not anger her, but she is also aware of the things that her master and senior brothers have done. She is afraid that the prince has evil intentions and may want to come to the graves of his master and senior brothers every now and then to humiliate him. Fan. Anyway, when she came today, she had the idea in her heart that she would accompany her senior brother to die for love. Instead of doing this, she would rather use her life to exchange for the peace of her master and senior brother. Su Tong couldn't help frowning when he saw this. You're blackmailing me. I dare not, but the deceased is respected and the deceased is the greatest. Haitang hopes that the prince can settle this grudge and give the deceased peace. Oh, what if I don't allow it? Su Tong curled his lips and smashed the jar of wine on the round tombstone with his backhand. Today I am in a good mood and I am offering him wine. Tomorrow I will be happy and I will pull a cart of manure to fertilize him. Don't you want to die? Go ahead and die as far away as you want. When you die, I will put this. The old man's grave was dug up, and his bones were crushed and ashes were thrown away to make a chamber pot. You. Nai Haitang was so angry that his heart hurt when he heard this, but he was helpless. Not to mention that she was seriously injured and fell down from the Grand Master level. Even if she was at her peak, there was nothing she could do about the prince in front of her. Although there is no direct evidence, the fat and thin Taochuo who seriously injured her was most likely killed by this prince. What's more, she had also heard about the Suantan Dharma assembly. The person standing in front of her was from the Buddhist section. The status of the Great Reverend is even equivalent to that of the Great Protector of UN side, no, in a certain sense, even more prestigious than UN side. So let alone threatening him, even if you fight him desperately, you are not qualified. While thinking about it, Su Tong ignored her, jumped over her, and walked to Tu Fei Yuan's grave. His eyes burst out with golden light, and he opened his eyes and looked directly at Tu Fei Yuan in the coffin through the earth coffin. Old guy, Why is your body still not rotten after you've been dead for so long? Are you pretending to be dead? Su Tong remembered what an old Taoist said, in the practice of prophecy, if you want to cut off the Tao, you must use the prophecy to cut off your own Tao fruit, and the selection of candidates all depends on luck. According to Tu Fei Yuan's temperament, Zhang Haisheng is definitely his destined person. Zhang Haisheng also said before that he received Tu Fei Yuan's favor. Then there were two remaining prophecies. Su Tong thought in his mind, either they should be attributed to Zhao Peng and Lu Ji, or... Thinking of this, Su Tong turned back to look at Nai Haitang, his eyes considered for a moment, then suddenly turned from anger to smile. Well, don't you want to guard the tomb? Then you can guard it here. I will have people come here to build a small temple for you. From now on, you can practice here. I will send people here every now and then. As long as you are not here, I will have these two tombs built into toilets. As soon as Su Tong said these words, he heard a muffled sound suddenly coming from the coffin. He turned his head to look at the coffin sideways, and sure enough, he saw that the round face in the coffin began to look ferocious. The prince is like this, and Haitang is also happy to accompany him. Sure enough, Nai Haitang was still innocent. Su Tong set a goal for her, and the girl's stubbornness became strong again. But Nai Haitang didn't know that after she said this, the fat and round coffin couldn't help but make a bang-bang sound, and a thick yellow air spurted out from the pants. As the saying goes, people live with their breath and die with their breath. This ancient Pei Yuan was holding his breath and waiting here, just waiting for Nai Haitang to die for Zhao Peng, and he could break out of the coffin after fulfilling the last prophecy. Kill the Tao and become an immortal. Who would have thought that Su Tong would come out halfway? With a few words, he broke the idea of sacrifice for love in Nai Haitang's heart. Now without a prophecy, Gu Pei Yuan in the coffin suddenly opened his eyes and opened his mouth to let out strange screams. He scratched the coffin lid frantically with his fingernails. Unfortunately, he was no longer a master, and Nai Haitang was no longer a grand master, so he couldn't hear the sound in the coffin. However, after a moment, Su Tong squinted and saw that Gu Pei Yuan in the coffin had completely stopped moving, and the body began to decay rapidly. Old man, you planned to kill me, and I ruined your prophecy. Now we are in trouble. Su Tong smiled coldly in his heart and placed the roast goose in his hand on Zhao Peng's grave. Looking with his eyes, he saw that there was an empty coffin in Zhao Peng's grave with a silver bait brocade bag inside. When I looked at it again, there was actually a love poem of confession inside. Seeing this, Su Tong couldn't help but sigh and pointed at the empty tomb. If I had known now, why would I bother with it then? Wouldn't it be nice for my wife and children to have a hot kong? Su Tong thought this way, but Zhao Peng didn't. People's pursuits are different. Su Tong and Zhao Peng are destined to be different people. Maybe this is because they have different paths and do not work together. When it comes to the fact that people in different ways do not work together, Su Tong thought of coming alone. It's time to leave. He must always fulfill his promise. Thinking of this, Su Tong frowned slightly. After descending from Bamang Mountain, a few days later, a fire suddenly broke out in Chongxian Pavilion. I don't know how the fire started. It's just that at night there were a few fluffy golden balls of flesh that were on fire, running around, and finally burned the Chongxian Hall to the ground. As for Mu Tiantong, I don't know if it was a coincidence or intentional. The old thief happened to enter the palace that night. It is said that the gold slips made for the saint have been made and will be shown to the saint before someone can send the gold slips. The bamboo slips are thrown into a hidden place in the mountains and forests. This method is called dragon bamboo slips in Taoism. When Mu Tiantong came back, he looked at the burned out Chongxian Pavilion and just breathed out and said nothing more. However, after that, Mu Tiantong never spoke to anyone again until the saint changed his reign name. After seeing it, Mu Tiantong sat down and passed away. Of course, this is all for later. 2 days before the fire was started, Su Tong submitted a memorial to the court about returning to his hometown to visit relatives. When the fire started to burn that night, he hurriedly left Luoyang City with Guo Yi and others and went home to Shu. As for Gao Zhou and Gu Zibai, they did not leave together. Gao Zhou also wanted to take advantage of this period to find a place to practice corpse cultivation. As for Gu Zibai, he went to the Prime Minister's kingdom under the recommendation of Su Tong. Temple. There is another person, Zhang Haisheng, this bastard, whose whereabouts are still unknown. Who knows where this guy has gone? The carriages clanked on the road. Guo Yi and Sun Yang sat on the carriage shaft, showing off their affection from time to time. Your Majesty, is this our homecoming? I still feel like I have had a big dream. Guo Yi looked at the Luoyang city that was getting farther and farther behind him, with an indescribable sigh in his eyes. He came out of Shu and now returns to Shu. In just 1 year, it seems like I have encountered everything I have ever encountered in my life. Not only had he achieved a level of master that he had never dared to imagine before, but he had also received a complete inheritance of the Buddhist demon-subduing skills. With this inheritance, it would not be difficult for him to open a sect in the world when he returns in the future. But these are not the most important things. The most important thing is that he has picked up a good wife who is as gentle and virtuous as a flower. It all feels like a dream. Looking back at this moment, it is inevitable to feel unrealistic. Not to mention Guo Yi, the entourage on the side felt as if they were in a dream. Someone said, Your Majesty, as soon as we go out, the name of the Crown Prince will be indispensable in the world from now on. This time we can be considered as following you to travel in the world. It will be enough for us to brag for 10 years after we go back. Ha ha ha. Su Tong gently opened the car curtain with his fingers and let out a loud laugh. This is just like reading thousands of books, it is better to walk thousands of miles. The world is so big, not just between sects, temples, and markets, even a small one. There are rivers and lakes everywhere in Yuyang City. As Su Tioxio's voice fell, he suddenly heard the sound of carriages and horses ahead. Seeing this, Guo Yi immediately put his hand calmly on the blade of his waist, his expression becoming alert. Not long after, he saw a group of people speeding past their motorcade. Su Tong took a closer look and saw that the group of people were wearing the same clothes, but there was an inconspicuous and strange mark on their waists. Huh! Guo Yi seemed to be aware of it, and there was a burst of surprise in his mouth. Why, Brother Guo recognizes them. Sun Yang noticed the expression on Guo Yi's face and couldn't help asking in a low voice. Guo Yi thought for a moment and nodded solemnly, yes, it's Shenkai section. Sun Yang didn't know anything about Jianghu, and she felt unfamiliar when she heard the name. She only heard Guo Yi say, Southern God Qi, Bei Yan's Hung. This Shenkai sect is good at praying. It is an elusive sect in the Jianghu. I have only heard of it, but it's the first time I've seen it. They are going in the opposite direction to us. I'm afraid they are going to Luoyang City. Some of the followers watched curiously and couldn't help but wonder, what were these people going to Luoyang City for? Prayer. Hate winning. Su Tong thought about it and remembered that the old Taoist had once said that the two families seemed to have been fighting since Zhou Wu, and in the end they fought to the death and disappeared into the long river of history along with the national destiny of the Tang dynasty. Could this be the beginning? Your Majesty, if these people go to Luoyang City, will they turn Luoyang City upside down just like us? One of the attendants looked at Su Tong. But Su Tong smiled mysteriously, looked into the distance, and said meaningfully, that's another story, and our story is over. As he spoke, Su Tong gently held up his hand, bowed slightly to the air in front of him, and gently closed the car curtain. He only heard a very slight sound coming from the carriage, which brought the script to an end. Return. Note, end of this volume. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 712. With the return, a person gradually appeared in front of Su Tong. Dion. Wuo. Heartbreaking cries echoed in the lobby. The name of Prince Gong was written on the tablet in front of the coffin. Li Zheng held his father's spiritual tablet and sat beside his father's coffin in silence for a long time. This young man wanted to be an official and do great things. His ambition was as high as the sky, but he didn't realize that he thought his father would be very happy if he became famous in Luoyang. Just like a child who proves to his father that he can do it, he can't wait to show off in front of his father. He was even talking about his ambition to achieve greater glory after returning to Luoyang this time. However, after the saint changed his reign name to Jushi, Prince Gong actually committed suicide. Li Zheng could not understand why his father committed suicide, and his original plan to return to Luoyang became a filial piety due to Prince Gong's suicide. It was not until the next year, after the Shenlong coup, that the dynasty changed like a whirlwind, and a large number of important ministers were killed and demoted. After Li Zheng came to his senses, he was horrified to discover that the murderous intentions lurking in the government and the public were so terrible. After the new emperor ascended the throne, Li Zheng was stripped of his official position and inherited the title of Prince Gong. He stayed in the land of Bashu and was gradually marginalized from then on. Su Tong watched the development of the story, took out the hookah pipe from the props book, smoked silently, sat in the void and watched, and then sighed for a moment. I admire this Prince Gong who I have never met before. He is just a marginalized prince, but he is able to sit back and observe the situation and detect the murderous intentions hidden in the court. Although his methods are extreme, he is decisive and ruthless and is by no means an easy matter. Generation. At this point in the scene, a couple is traveling. Su Tong was happy when he saw it. This couple was Guoyi and Sunyang. After they sent Li Zheng back to Shu, they began to travel around the world. Guoyi possesses the body-protecting skills of horizontal training and Buddhist demon-subduing skills. Although he has never entered Taoism, he is already one of the few masters in the world. There is no place in the world where mountains and rivers can go. However, there is no way to keep your shoes wet when you often walk by the river. Guoyi encountered a weary magician in a village. Although he killed him, he also lost an arm. After being seriously injured and unconscious, he was saved by a country gentleman. The girl from the squire's family also fell in love with Guoyi. She didn't think he was disabled at all and insisted on marrying him. Sunyang initially disagreed, but seeing that the girl was sincere, she finally agreed. 2 years later, when Guoyi was 40 years old, the girl gave birth to a fat boy. The family lived in seclusion in Hedong and lived a happy life. This is exactly what the fortune teller said. Su Tong watched the picture freeze on Guoyi's big, silly face, and couldn't help but curl his lips. Hey, you are really a fool with stupid blessings. It will be more comfortable than me becoming a prince later. Boom. Su Tong was enjoying himself when a bell sounded. He looked up and saw a small temple. When he looked back, he saw a beautiful figure kneeling in front of the Buddha statue, with his hands clasped together, and he knelt down sincerely. It was Nai Haitang. The old nun on the side picked up the sword and began to shave off the long black hair. The golden knife shaves off the mother's hair, removing the impurity of dust. The square-robed monk appears in the dome, and Guanyin sits down as a practitioner. Watching his long hair fade away, Nai Haitang didn't know what he was thinking in his eyes. When he heard the bell ringing and looked up again, his eyes were clear and traceless. When the begonias are cut off, the love flowers will fall, and the green lanterns and ancient Buddhas will bear fruit. Su Tong raised his eyebrows, but he didn't expect Nai Haitang to become a monk in the end. In fact, this was not what he thought. Those words were just to give her a few goals. Unexpectedly, in the end, the girl escaped into Buddhism. It's really sad. The picture in front of me is still changing. Su Tong saw many familiar people, including Dai Yud, whose hometown was on the border. The 70-year-old eunuch Dai encountered a small group of Turkic thieves on his way back home. Today, our family must act like a man and go into battle to kill the enemy. Let me kill you. Eunuch Dai waved the big knife in his hand, stood on the shaft of the cart and chopped down a Turkic bandit. Blood spattered on his face, and his white hair was dyed red by the blood. Perhaps until this moment, Eunuch Dai, who had been careful all his life, could for the first time, I experience the feeling of gratification and revenge, and the feeling of a passionate man. However, he was outnumbered after all. When he killed another Turkic bandit, he was shot through the chest, which brought the curtain down on his life. There is also Wu Fan. Originally, befriending Wu Fan should have a follow-up mission, but this mission itself has not been completed. In the first year of Shenlong, on the eve of the coup, the two families of Kishu and Yanshu had begun to fight fiercely, but Wu Fan was involved in it and suddenly disappeared. When he was found a week later, Wu Fan was already dead, which was even more bizarre. What's more, his body was tightly entangled with a tree. The scene comes to the end. It was a mournful wail. The fire covered the sky and covered the sun, reflecting the entire temple. According to the decree of Emperor Wu, among all the states in the world, only one Buddhist temple will be left in Shangzhou, all temples in Xiaoshu will be abolished, and 10 temples will be left in Chang'an and Luoyang each, with 10 monks in each temple, and all property will be confiscated. As the eunuch recited the edict expressionlessly, large areas of Buddhist temples were demolished. An old monk walked outside the door with an expressionless face. He seemed not surprised by all this. He just clasped his hands together and said with a hint of regret, "Amitabha, I didn't wait until the time of great prosperity." Su Tong looked at the old monk and realized that the monk was none other than the great monk Yuan Side. Today, the great monk Yuan Side is already an old monk with grey eyebrows. He is so old that even Su Tong is surprised. Ordinarily, with his extreme strength, even if he didn't make any progress after so many years, he would still be able to maintain his appearance. How could he have aged like this? It's a pity that the scene in front of me does not tell the cause and effect, but just shows everyone's ending like a horse watching a lantern. Looking at the demolished temple, Yuan Xiang recited Amitabha Buddha. In the background of the burning fire, he walked to the end of his life unwillingly. The last picture. What Su Tong saw was the huge city of Luoyang, transformed into a human purgatory and ruins of hell in a sea of fire, until the fire burned whiter and whiter, completely disappearing in front of Su Tong, replaced by the sound of prompts from the prop book. Congratulations to the player for completing this scenario, the mission rewards are being settled. Identity Character 1, River Inspector mission completed, 500 script points obtained. Main Mission 1, Salute to the Heaven mission completed, 300 script points obtained. Scenario Branch 1, Meechin Wavai, Wufen mission failure, no punishment. Team Building Mission 1, Promote and Make a Fortune mission completed, received a very high rating, received 800 script points and obtained a silver level team building badge. You can use this badge to establish a silver level certified team. Main Mission 2, Suantan Dharma Protector mission completed, 300 script points obtained. Side Mission 2, Third Sister Complains mission completed, 500 script points obtained. Side Mission 3, Strange Coffin and Mystery mission failed, 1000 script points will be deducted. Special Mission, Transform Hu into Buddha, 1, mission completed, 500 script points obtained. As the pleasant prompts continued to sound, the script points gained this time were not small. However, 2 of the tasks failed, which deducted a lot of points for myself. But overall, Su Tong was quite satisfied. After all, my original purpose was to build a team and complete certification level team tasks. The other is to help Gao Zhou complete the certification task. At present, the most important purpose has been achieved, and the others are just incidental receipts. Except for prop points. The following tips can't help but make people look forward to it. You have obtained the prop card, King Kong Demon Suppressing Hand. Please check it yourself for details. You have obtained the prop card. Please inquire for details about Hegemony. You have obtained the prop card. Please check the details of Hussar's order by yourself. You get the item card. Silver Team Building Badge. Please check for details. Congratulations on obtaining the Special Achievement Defender. Please check for details. If you have obtained the Special Achievement Awe-Inspiring Righteousness, please check it yourself. The rewards for prop cards are not many, but combined with the gains I have gained from this script world, I have already made a lot of money. So overall, I have made a profit this time. When the accounting prompts gradually disappeared, Su Tong opened his eyes and found that he had returned to the ancient town at the foot of Ching Cheng Mountain. Seeing the clean streets in front of him, the bright lights, and the music coming from the distance, Su Tong suddenly relaxed completely. He casually found a bench in front of the bar and sat down, ordered a glass of cocktail, put it to his mouth and took a sip. The comfortable feeling made him feel as relaxed as returning home from get off work after the performance. Head. At this time, Gao Zhou walked out from a corner not far away and ran up to Su Tong. From his excited look, it is easy to know that this guy's calculation results this time will definitely not be too bad. In fact, the difficulty of Zhuo certification is considered normal. And with the special care of the young lady, Gao Zhou's task process can almost be described as smooth. Even without his own participation, I believe Gao Zhou can complete it beautifully. This is the difference between someone taking care of you and having no one. The last time I certified the script, I almost had a barbecue several times. It was completely because someone interfered with it. Fortunately, he survived, otherwise he would have become a pile of bones by now. Not surprisingly, Gao Zhou excitedly introduced the rewards he received after completing the certification tasks, which were indeed quite substantial. The most important thing is that he actually got an advanced dynamic prop card, Ghost Dafa. Su Tong glanced at it. This prop card belongs to the upgradable series of high-end prop cards, and it matches Gao Zhou's zombie physique very well. This guy, let's call him unlucky, he is the kind of person who can step on shit when he goes out. Well, let's call him lucky. Every time he steps on it, it's still dog shit. The three words shit luck really suit him. After the two of them sat in front of the bar and drank a glass of wine, Gao Zhou was going to the town for a big meal. This time the script was pure suffering. He had never eaten a good meal. At this moment, he was about to gorge himself. Make it up. Su Tong lost his enthusiasm because he had more important things to do. He bought some wine, meat, and braised vegetables in the town, and then hurried back to Miai's Huang. After entering the gate of Plum Village, Su Tong didn't have time to communicate with the plum tree in the village, so he happily used the shankao in front of the plum tree and went in to find the master. As his figure disappeared, Su Tong could still be vaguely heard shouting, "Master, Master, I have brought you a gift." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 713. The reason why Su Tong went to find his master so excitedly was of course because he was really gifted. What kind of gift? Of course, it is a godhead of Matada. Although he has not completely completed the task of the being killing order, it is not considered a failure, and can even be said to be a small victory. After all, this is not a fragment of Matada's soul, but part of Matada's godhead. Being able to compete with Buddha for luck, Modada is definitely a very powerful demon. It would be a difficult problem to defeat him, let alone capture and seal part of his godhead. If it weren't for the help of that talisman, I might have lost my life in this guy's hands this time. Speaking of the treasure talisman, Su Tong felt quite sorry. After the ceremony at the Xian altar, the remaining energy of the treasure talisman had almost disappeared. After all, they are consumables and cannot withstand his squandering. To be able to hit several Zixiao divine thunders in succession is already considered as a talisman maker with vast magical powers and boundless power. No matter how you say it, whether you are lucky or lucky, now that you have captured Madada's godhead, it doesn't matter whether you complete the being killing order or not. When Su Tong rushed over and took a look, he found that the master, the old Taoist, and the eldest princess were all waiting for him with smiles on their faces. Su Tong immediately felt that his treatment was different. The old Taoist came over very diligently and helped Su Tong pick up the food and wine. Young master has worked hard, and your hard work has paid off. Young master, please come in quickly. The eldest princess stared, and although her face was full of reluctance, she still came forward and squeezed his shoulders. Good guy, those little hands are cold, the strength is moderate, and they feel comfortable enough to fly. Master also rarely made tea himself. This kind of treatment makes you feel like you are the king of the family. In fact, Su Tong and his master have a troop-like relationship in addition to master, apprentice and grandson. The master is both a preacher and an art troupe, and he is also the leader of the troupe. He tries his best to make a name for himself among his disciples. Then the whole troupe pointed to this corner to eat. There is no doubt that Su Tong is the corner of this troupe. He sang well today and received a reward. Su Tong earned all this money. If the corner has made money, everyone in the troupe will definitely praise him high. It wasn't until Master Song saw that he was so excited that he coughed twice and signaled that everyone was almost done. Then everyone sat down on a table, as if they were having a meeting. Even the zombie ancestor of the Mei family came. Of course, he might not be able to serve at the table, so Master Song arranged a small bench to sit aside and listen. As for the mountain ghost, this guy didn't even have a small bench, he just squatted outside the door. Bring it here. The master opened his palm. Su Tong didn't need to say anything, the eldest princess had already made everything clear. Su Tong did not hesitate and quickly took out the soul coffin and handed it to the master. The master took it and took a look, weighed it in his hand for a moment, then nodded and said, I will leave immediately for Luofu Mountain. You talked about alchemy last time, this time I have found you again. Then he looked at the eldest princess, girl, if you want to kill Dao, I'm afraid it's not time yet, so please slow down this time. The eldest princess nodded to express her understanding. The master looked at the old Taoist, who waved his hand, I won't arrive in time, just wait. After saying that, he seemed to have thought of something, turned around and said to Su Tong, you should watch that little zombie and let him kill me. My physical body has been preserved, I may go back someday. Don't worry, how about I bring you back in body next time? Su Tong asked rhetorically. The old Taoist pinched his beard and thought for a moment, then waved his hand, forget it, let's stay with him for now. My body is contaminated with yin energy, which will damage my Taoism. That's it? Whatever you can win, I'll come in and help you fight for more. After the master finished speaking, he looked at Su Tong, his eyes becoming more and more kind. There is one more thing, the festival is approaching, the West is sending envoys to Yushan to offer gifts, and one person is needed to take care of it. Huh? Could it be me? Seeing his master looking at him, Su Tong couldn't help but be startled, scratched his head, and remembered that his master had mentioned this before. At that time, the master said that Yushan was where the lord of the palace lived, and his old man could only stand outside the door when he went up the mountain. He, a little miscellaneous fish, probably didn't even have the qualifications to stand outside the door when he went up the mountain. Why do you want to receive those Western envoys yourself? Therefore, Su Tong suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. Someone called you by name, and the higher UPS were in a difficult situation, so they entrusted me with this responsibility and asked me to send you. When the master said this, he picked up the teacup in his hand and took a sip. Seeing this, Master Song Lao on the side curled his lips. Yes, this bad guy still has to do it himself. He could only continue the conversation helplessly. If you don't go, we may be in trouble in this 3-acre area. It's not a big trouble. After all, we still have this credit. The master shook the soul coffin in his hand. Su Tong rolled his eyes, wondering why he couldn't tell that his master's hidden meaning was that if he refused to take on this job, his superiors would have no choice but to play this trick of balancing merits and demerits and swallow up his own merits. Son, you don't want to lose this credit, Master Song Lao said with narrowed eyes. The corner of Su Tong's mouth twitched, as if he had seen the master's words in some Japanese drama. This made him think about Nai Haitang. As expected, if a person has concerns, it means he has a weakness. But who is letting his family sit at this table? Su Tong agreed with helplessness, but he couldn't wait in his heart. The Yin Cao, the secluded mountain, and the lord of the mansion were all mysterious and unknown, which attracted Su Tong to want to see what happened. Even if the master didn't tell him, he would agree. After all, this is also a good opportunity for a business trip. I just want to try it out and see if the money model I have is working well. Of course, you still have to pretend to be wronged, otherwise you will appear to be unreserved. Seeing Su Tong agree, the master and master looked at each other and finally heaved a sigh of relief. Then the master patted his chest and said that he would definitely bring a lot of good things when he came back, so he immediately got up and set off for Luofu Mountain. When Su Tong saw this, he wanted to run away, but was caught by his master. Mr. Song squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "You have become a Taoist. It's time to read some books. Today we will read the Taoist scriptures." "No, that thing dazzles me." When Su Tong heard the Taoist scriptures, his face turned green. Unfortunately, he had no choice but to do it, so Mr. Song dragged him to the study to recite the scriptures all night long. At the same time, at the foot of Qingcheng Mountain, a young man put on his Taoist robe and Taoist hat again. When he raised his head, he looked at the huge Qingcheng Mountain with a smile on his face. As soon as he jumped, his figure disappeared like a wisp of light smoke, and he reached the top of the mountain in a short time. Huh! The old Taoists sitting outside the cave squinted and raised their heads. When they saw it was Zhang Haisheng, they were shocked. "Hai Sheng, you have become enlightened." Although these old Taoists were not even great masters, their eyes were very venomous, and they could see Zhang Haisheng's otherworldly aura at a glance. This is a sign of enlightenment. I haven't seen Zhang Haisheng all night, but I can't believe that this child has broken through the shackles in the blink of an eye. For a time, several veteran Taoists cried with joy. Many of them knelt on the ground and faced the east, shouting that the ancestor had appeared. After so many years, let alone becoming a Taoist, they could not even reach the Grand Master level. Now, they finally have a disciple who has become a Taoist. This is a sign of great prosperity in Qingcheng Mountain. How can they not be happy? Masters, please don't be so sad and happy. Seeing these veteran Taoists crying and laughing, Zhang Haisheng was worried that they had damaged their vitality, so he hurriedly waved his hands to release a blast of qi to calm the emotions of these veteran Taoists. Seeing the true energy entering their bodies, the old Taoists were full of energy, but at the same time they gradually calmed down. That's very good. You have become enlightened. It just so happens that Luo Tiandajhen has reached a critical moment in the past few days. We will work harder tomorrow. Once you succeed, you will be favored by the ancestor by virtue of your divine appearance and you will be able to rise to the top. Directly to the cave sky. This is a huge opportunity, you must seize it. An old Taoist said seriously. Once Luo Tianda succeeds, he will be connected to the cave heaven blessed land on Qingcheng Mountain. It is a fairy cave where mortals can only stop. Now that Zhang Hai has become a Taoist, he has the qualifications to enter it. You must know that it contains the foundation of their Qingcheng Mountain. Hai Shen will definitely remember what my senior uncles told me, but... Zhang Haisheng hesitated slightly. Just what? Seeing that he was struggling, several veteran Taoists hurriedly asked. It's just one person I'm worried about. There was a cold look in Zhang Haishen's eyes. This time he entered the script world with Su Tong, although he relied on his own luck to forcefully become a Taoist. But I also found that Su Tong was very cunning, and I was almost betrayed by him this time. And although this guy is not very lucky, his blessings are too strong. Even though I have good luck with him, I am always affected by him. No wonder the master said that this person and I are old enemies. Upon seeing this, several old Taoists immediately knew what Zhang Haisheng was worried about. They looked at each other and smiled. Don't worry, kid, it's just a low-level sideshow. When the time comes, we will have our own way to deal with him. Masters, please don't be careless, this person has already entered the Tao. Zhang Haisheng was afraid that these uncles were going to be killed, so he hurriedly reminded them. Entering the Tao. He has actually entered the Tao. Hearing this, several veterans couldn't help but be shocked. For a time, several veteran Taoists had mixed feelings in their hearts. In today's world, having two masters of 7 sects and 1 sect is already regarded as a good talk, and it is unthinkable that the young master is better than the master. If Shueqiquan knew it, he would probably be able to smile. But when I thought about it, I wasn't surprised. If this kid didn't have any skills, how could he make Hai Shen, who had become a celestial being, so afraid? Ha 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 ha, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Even if this kid is a god, it won't be a problem. However, these old Taoists were not fooled. They looked at each other, and then saw an old Taoist whispering in Zhang Haishen's ear, Hai Shen, have you ever heard of the Lianji dust formation? Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 715. When Su Tong finished memorizing the scriptures and came out of the gap between reality and reality, he found that Mei Xian was already calling him impatiently. The huge tree crowns were trembling, as if eager to communicate with him. Su Tong glanced at Mei Xian and knew that Mei Xian was probably anxious at this time. According to the agreement between the two of them, only when he entered the Tao would it be willing to move into his realm of reality and reality. Mei Xian originally thought that it would take at least 3 years for Su Tong to enter Taoism, even if he was extremely talented. But who would have thought that this kid would come back from a trip down the mountain, and in the next day, he would actually enter Taoism. At this time, Mei Xian was lying in her heart when she said she was not in a hurry. On the one hand, she wanted to find out how Su Tong entered Taoism. On the other hand, there are many things to say to him. Su Tong yawned, his face was listless, and he said to the plum tree, coming right now. She looked tired, like the top girl who had just finished the clock and had to deal with the next customer. He was really sleepy after reading the Taoist scriptures all night, and his eyelids were shaking. I lay down casually under the plum tree, closed my eyes, and soon heard bursts of snoring. As a result, just as she closed her eyes, Mei Xian's consciousness came quietly. Su Tong's consciousness was quickly pulled into Mei Xian's domain. I saw an old man sitting under the huge plum tree, waving to him with a smile on his face. Old guy, can't you let me have a good sleep? Su Tong rolled his eyes and sat under the plum blossom tree. We agreed at the beginning that you would follow me when I entered Taoism. You won't regret this, right? No no no. Mei Xian shook his head. We have agreed on this matter a long time ago, so there is no reason to regret it, but how did you enter the Tao, and how did you enter the Tao so quickly? You're lucky, otherwise. Su Tong would not tell Mei Xian about the script world. Someone would explain this kind of thing to him when he gets on the pirate ship. Mei Xian had a look on her face that she believed you were evil. Even though she was lucky, she was not that good. She hurriedly called Su Tong to release his Dao fruit so that he could have a good look at it. Mei Xian took a closer look and was immediately dumbfounded. You have learned a lot. Very knowledgeable and talented. Mei Xian rolled her eyes. Didn't she realize that she was being sarcastic? You are a good successor of Yanshu, and what you have learned is the inheritance of the Mei family. What the hell is a water Dao fruit? That's it for the water Tao fruit, but what about the golden Buddha fruit? When did you switch to Buddhism? Mei Xian looked at the two Taoist fruits that Su Tong had entered into and rolled her eyes. You are so mixed and impure, let me see how you become Taoist in the future. When people practice cultivation, the three Taoist fruits are all followed in a sequential and gradual way, but Su Tong doesn't care about this. I really don't know how this kid will achieve Taoism in the future. If others had heard what Mei Xian said, they would have panicked, but Su Tong was not like that. Instead, he said, the sea is filled with hundreds of rivers, need the chowder, no matter what he does, what is left in the end is yours, then it's the best. These words were not said by Su Tong, but by Master Song Lao. Although Mr. Song is just an ordinary stranger, you are totally wrong if you want to say that Mr. Song is ordinary. The master is a big boss who has ridden the marauding girl. If the master hadn't killed him too hard back then, he would have offended all kinds of religions. The resentment is too great, and many pairs of eyes are staring at him, fearing that even if the master's achievements are not as good as the master, they will not be too bad. Su Tong also asked his master about his Dao fruit. As a result, Mr. Song felt that this was not necessarily a bad thing. There were thousands of foreign students in the world, and it was not necessarily necessary to learn it profoundly. Even if it is a peerless magical skill, it may not be the most suitable for you. You can learn from hundreds of schools and learn from each other's strengths. It may seem chaotic, but in the end it may not be impossible to find your own way. This is also what the master and master hope. They don't want Su Tong to always follow the path of Kimen, and they don't want Su Tong to pass on Shankao as an ancestral craft in the future, so for him to borrow water to enter Taoism, I don't think there is anything wrong with the matter of attaining Buddhahood again. Even when Master Shuigui created Beishan Cao, didn't he draw on the core content of Buddhism and Taoism and combine it with the experience of Julio to create this extremely damaging move? Hi, you do have some ideas, but since ancient times, there are not many people who can combine the strengths of hundreds of schools of thought and make up for their own shortcomings. Since you don't mind it, I have another Dao fruit here, let's see if you dare to take it. Seeing that Su Tong was so ambitious, Mei Xian also planned to join in the fun. Where? Su Tong's eyes lit up, he didn't expect such a good thing. It's right here in Qingcheng Mountain. Mei Xian stamped her feet, and immediately after Su Tong's eyes, the stars were moving. In an instant, she seemed to be pulled up to the sky, looking down at the entire mountain from a high place. Rise. Mei Xian's fingers moved lightly, and the mountain in front of him was filled with flickering fluorescent light. The fluorescent light became stronger and stronger, and gradually formed a talisman, covering the entire Qingcheng mountain. This is the Dao fruit. It depends on whether you can win it. Su Tong was immediately shocked as the mountain before his eyes shone brightly. Under the irradiation of green fire, the huge mountain appeared as a huge fruit. It turned out that Qingcheng mountain itself was a Tao fruit. This is the Taoist fruit accumulated by the Mei family for hundreds of years and generations. For hundreds of years, Plum Blossom Village has saved the ghosts and accumulated good fruits, which were completely integrated into the roots of Plum Fairy. After being tempered by the roots of Plum Fairy and the Qingcheng Mountain Institute, it finally refines such a Taoist fruit for the purpose of being in the future. The end of the Dharma era can leave an opportunity for the Mei family. Unfortunately, the May family finally chose to follow the trend of the times. Ever since the old man from Maidu announced that the May family wanted to keep up with the times and moved out of the mountains, the May family had almost abandoned their cultivation methods and only retained some magic techniques. Even with the prodigy Maidu and inheriting the inheritance of the May family, he has not yet reached that point and he cannot use this Taoist fruit. Now that Su Tong has inherited his Yanchu, this Dao fruit belongs to Su Tong. The premise is that he can take it out. Once he fuses this Tao fruit, he can achieve the perfection of entering the Tao. After hearing Mei Xian's explanation, Su Tong felt relieved. It would be great if he could explain the origin of this thing clearly. He was afraid that if he could not explain the origin clearly, he would have trouble with the Taoist priests in the mountains. Thinking of this, Su Tong made a secret with his fingers and his eyes glowed. Search for souls, explore bones, and detect characters and seals. The context had already appeared in front of him, so there was no need to look for it anymore. He directly used the exploration seal in Yanchu. Suddenly his spirit turned into a big net, trying to force the huge fruit into his bag. Rumble, rumble. For a moment, all the birds on Qingcheng Mountain seemed to be frightened, and flew into the air with a splash. At the same time, Dongxian Taoist who was meditating was suddenly shocked, not good. After saying bad words, Taoist Dongxian stood up and went straight to the back mountain. The old Taoists on Qingcheng Mountain all looked serious when they saw this. Seeing the headmaster heading straight to the back mountain, they knew that something big had happened. Taoist Master Lingxiu of Longhu Mountain, Taoist Master Jingyun of Yuntai Mountain, and Master Huigo of Mount Imei were also alarmed. The three of them were meditating and resting in the courtyard to accumulate strength for Luo Tianda in the next few days. At this moment, I noticed something strange and couldn't help but open my eyes. Taoist Lingxiu looked at the sky and couldn't help but raise his brows slightly. He made some calculations with his fingers. Hey, it's really a fight between dragons and tigers. Infinite Heavenly Lord, if Qingcheng Mountain and the Mei family are united, they will be prosperous, but if they are separated, they will be harmed. Now it is finally time to separate. Taoist priest Yunjing held a fly whisk and said with a heavy expression. The Mei family followed the times and moved out of Qingcheng Mountain, and even gave up their spiritual practice. However, the fate of the Mei family was not separated from Qingcheng Mountain. Strictly speaking, the foundation of the Mei family is still in this mountain. Now that the foundation has been disturbed, this is an earth-shattering event for Qingcheng Mountain. Call the Mei family. Don't end up making a fuss that doesn't end and spoil the big thing. Taoist Lingxiu sighed, took out his cell phone and dialed the number of the old man of the Mei family. Taoist priest Yunjing on the side saw this and jokingly said, "Ha, modern technology is better. Look at us sitting thousands of miles away and being able to transmit sound through the air. This is no better than the gods on land." Master Huigo was quite worried at first, but when he heard this, he couldn't help but grinned, and poked Taoist Yunjing with his finger. "How long has it been since then and you still have the heart to joke? It's not my house anyway. Let's hold watermelons and hold spoons, and be like melon-eating people. Why not do it?" Two veterans who were half a century old were still joking and bantering. Little did he know that the entire Mei family was about to explode with this call from Taoist Lingxiu. Meidu was pulled off the bed by his father. Regardless of whether Meidu was still wearing pajamas, he dragged her directly into the car. "Dad, what happened?" Meidu was sleepy, stretched out, and casually put his arm on the shoulder of the person next to him. There was still eye mucus in the corners of his eyes, like a lazy cat that had just woken up and rubbed against you. It was only when he raised his head that he suddenly realized that he was actually his grandfather in front of him. He immediately became energetic and quickly took his hands away from the old man's shoulders. He sat upright and adjusted his sitting posture. When he looked again, he saw that in addition to his father, grandfather, and three uncles, everyone was in the car with serious expressions, which suddenly gave Meidu a bad feeling. Something happened in Miai's Huang. Meidu's father looked sideways at Meidu, said these 5 words, and said no more. Problem occurs. Meidu was startled, and immediately thought of Gao Zhou and Su Tong. His heart skipped a beat. Looking at his grandfather's expression sideways, he knew that maybe the 2 of them had caused some trouble, and even his grandfather had been killed. Alarmed. Could it be that something went wrong with Brother Gao's corpse refining? Meidu was thinking. However, when the car drove straight to Qingchen Mountain, Meidu got out of the car and took a look. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Good guy, Taoist Dongxian, Taoist Lingxiu, Taoist Master of Qingchen Mountain, Jingyun Taoist of Yuntai Mountain, and Huigo Master of Yimei Mountain. The president of the local Taoist association, and several well-known local Taoists were all waiting outside the entrance of Miai's Huang. The immortal Banban in the nest, what is Brother Gao doing? Why did you alert all these people? Meidu was wailing and screaming in his heart, and he bravely walked up behind his father. Taoist Dongxian stepped forward and spoke, which made Meidu feel like he was struck by lightning. The old man came at the right time. The foundation of the Mei family affects the entire Qingchen Mountain. Please be careful, old man. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 716. The old man of the Mei family had a heavy expression. As Taoist Dongxian said, the Mei family and Qingchen Mountain seem to be separated, but in fact the foundation of the Mei family still remains in Qingchen Mountain, and even the Mei family's luck lies here. After such a big thing happened, Mr. Mei naturally did not dare to neglect it. As for Meidu's father and uncles, they were already glaring and furious, but they didn't get angry because of the face of outsiders. After all, this had shaken the foundation of their Mei family, not to mention that the relationship between this person and the Mei family had not reached this stage. Even if you have great kindness to the Mei family, it won't do. Immediately, the old man of the Mei family led the way, and the group walked through the mountain and forest paths and arrived at the gate of Mei village. This is Plum Blossom Village. Except for the few experienced Taoists present from Qingchen Mountain and Taoist Dongxian, there were very few outsiders who had actually been to Miai's Huang. Even Taoist priest Lingxiu of Longhu Mountain came to the gate of Plum Blossom Villa for the first time. Looking at the traces of time on the majestic and solemn gate in front of him, Taoist Master Lingxiu couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although the Maihua Taoist priests did not form a sect in the past, all the 8 sects in the world have more or less received the blessings of Miai's Huang. People say that the world's martial arts originated from Shaolin, and the world's Taoism originated from Dragon and Tiger. Then there will be more in the future. There is a saying that all magic in the world comes from Miai's Huang. And this magnificent manner, just like the plum blossom Taoist, quietly rises and disappears quietly. Even standing here at this moment, you can feel the mysterious feeling coming to your face. Buzz. The door slowly opened, and everyone followed the footsteps of the old man of the Mei family and walked into the grand door. What they saw was the huge plum tree that had no age. The main trunk of the plum tree is like dozens of horned dragons circling upward, and the branches stretch into the air, almost covering half of the courtyard, and are at least 10 meters high. Infinite Heavenly Lord! Everyone was shocked when they saw this plum tree. There are forests of ancient trees on Qingchen Mountain, and there are countless trees that are taller than buildings. But no one has ever seen plum trees that are so huge. It is worthy of being the first paradise of Taoism. Look, what is he doing? Suddenly someone took a closer look and saw Su Tong lying under the plum tree, seemingly asleep. I saw Su Tong lying under the tree, like a sleeping arhat, with 2 Taoist fruits disappearing and appearing behind him, and his whole body was wrapped in a nameless aura, just like the immortal in the painting, sleepwalking through 3,000 worlds. A strong plum fragrance spread from Su Tong's body. Seeing this situation, everyone changed their minds. Enter the Tao. Taoist Dong Xian had already learned about Su Tong's entry into the Tao from Zhang Haisheng, but he was shocked when he actually saw it. What was even more shocking was the invisible aura that filled Su Tong's body at this moment. It was obvious that he had arrived. Some kind of pivotal moment. Plum blossom inheritance. It turns out that the rumors left by our ancestors are true. For a moment, the old man of the Mei family raised his head tremblingly and looked at the plum tree in front of him, feeling a turmoil in his heart. Rumor has it that the plum blossom Taoist attained enlightenment under this tree, and once said that this tree was the ancestor of their plum blossom lineage. Although the plum blossom Taoist said this, most people did not take it seriously. They only thought that the plum blossom Taoist wanted to hide himself. Randomly said in the past. After all, after so many years in the Mei family, no descendant has been able to inherit the plum blossom inheritance, so that future generations only regard it as just a legend. How can one not be excited now that we can see the plum blossom inheritance reappearing, but, why is it in the body of an outsider? For a moment, Mr. Mei looked confused and helpless. This person is not a descendant of the Mei family, how can he take the blessings of the Mei family? Taoist Dong Xian suddenly spoke, and everyone frowned as soon as he said this. Taoist Lingxiu looked sideways at the side and was about to speak when he suddenly heard a cold snort. What's the matter? You are so jealous that you want to kill someone and seize the treasure. Everyone looked back and saw Gao Zhou walking out of the shadows, exuding an evil aura that was visible to the naked eye. Before he even got close, he was followed by a fishy wind. Flying yaksha. How rare that there is such a vicious yaksha in this world. Taoist Lingxiu stared at Gao Zhou and looked him up and down. Gao Zhou strolled forward, clasped his hands, and bowed deeply to Taoist Lingxiu and others, the descendants of the Gao family in western Hunan. Gao Zhou would like to say hello to the seniors. Facing the masters of the three religions, Gao Zhou did not dare to talk in circles and openly reported his family status. Gao family. Taoist Lingxiu was startled, and then he was greatly surprised. When he looked at Gao Zhou, his eyes instantly became much kinder. Who are you, Gao Xiaoshan? Taoist Lingxiu called Grandpa Gao Zhou by his first name, which made Gao Zhou's heart skip a beat. He hurriedly and respectfully said to Taoist Lingxiu, Gao Xiaoshan is my grandfather. Do you know my grandfather? Hearing this, Taoist Lingxiu's expression suddenly dawned on him, and his face showed joy. He stroked his long beard with his hand and nodded, that's it, immeasurable heavenly lord. Taoist Lingxiu said as he stepped forward, took Gao Zhou's wrist, touched his pulse with his finger, and immediately nodded. Fortunately, although the corpse poison is heavy, it does not hurt the 5 internal organs. When the matter here is over, you can follow me, go back to Longhu Mountain and ask me to take you to Mission Sect. I will give you a great opportunity. When Gao Zhou heard that there was such a good thing, he couldn't help but feel happy. Where is Mission Sect? It is the holy place for corpse refining in the world. Mission's magic techniques are even more unpredictable and mysterious. If he could enter the Mission Sect, it would not be difficult for him to enter Taoism. However, Gao Zhou was overjoyed, but he did not dare to agree rashly. Instead, he carefully asked Taoist Lingxiu in front of him, how dare you ask senior and my grandfather? Ha 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 ha, when I was on the beach in Shanghai, I was plotted by a Japanese onmyoji master. Your grandfather saved me. It means that I owe you the Gao family. Your grandfather, Gao Xiaoshan, killed Qingming Sanjin and vented evil anger on me, China. He also contributed to the world. When Taoist Lingxiu talked about Gao Xiaoshan, his face was slightly excited, and he told everyone who was still in the mist about the heroic past of Gao Xiaoshan. In a few words, everyone can understand what happened that year. Just as Taoist Lingxiu was speaking brilliantly, Taoist Dong Xian could not help but interrupt, Senior brother Lingxiu, now is not the time to tell stories. Taoist Dong Xian had a dark face, and it would be dark if Taoist Lingxiu continued talking. Taoist Dongxian looked at Su Tong sideways and said, "This inheritance of the Mei family must be inherited by the Mei family. This person is." Ahem. Before Taoist Dongxian finished speaking, he heard Mr. Mei cough twice and interrupted Taoist Dongxian. "Taoist Dongxian has already said this. The plum trees are not belonging to my Mei family. They are the ancestors of my Mei family. There is also an ancestral saying that the Mei family should take the plum tree as its ancestor, and the inheritance of plum blossoms is not controlled by anyone but my Mei family." As soon as these words came out, everyone, including Mei Du's father, was shocked. This plum blossom inheritance is a huge blessing. I didn't expect that the old man of the Mei family not only didn't want it, but kept pushing it away. What's the truth? Dad, this. The third child of the Mei family widened his eyes and was about to speak, but was suddenly glared at by Mr. Mei. The third child immediately did not dare to speak anymore. I saw Mr. Mei take out the Mei family's ancestral training from his sleeve. The ancestors of my Mei family have long concluded that if one day someone can inherit the plum blossom inheritance, he will be the owner of Plum Village from then on, and this place will have nothing to do with my Mei family. As Mr. Mei spoke, he unfolded the ancestral teachings for everyone to see. Mr. Mei. Taoist Dongxian never expected that Mr. Mei had lost his mind and gone crazy, and that such a big Zhuangzi would give up to this kid for nothing. Isn't this their ancestral home? Dad, we still need to discuss this matter. This is our ancestral home. Mei Du's uncles all had dark faces. How could such a geomantic treasure land be given away so easily? Dad, uncle, according to the ancestral teachings, this matter is indeed the case. Since our family has entered the world and stopped cultivating, we should no longer take advantage of this blessing. Mei Du was thoughtful and knew what his grandfather was thinking when he saw this, so he reminded him. But after saying this, he saw the three uncles turning back to look at him angrily, and the third one even yelled angrily, "Who said that my Mei family has stopped cultivating? Aren't you a descendant of my Mei family? You turn your elbows outward and crawl inside and outside things." Mei Du was scolded so much that he curled his lips and cursed in his heart that these uncles and his father had fallen in the eyes of money. Of course, he didn't dare to say these words, so he could only lower his head and dare not speak any more. But it was obvious that Mr. Mei had made up his mind. Hearing this, he sneered and said, "What does doer's practice have to do with you? You have made a fortune in business over the years, but there is no sign of any practice at all." After finishing speaking, he whispered earnestly to the unsatisfactory sons in front of him, "The most important thing in being a human being is knowing yourself. As the saying goes, the authorities are confused, but those who watch are clear. Taoist Lingxia can see clearly. This old man must take the Mei family out of this matter. The Mei family is no longer what it used to be, and there is no benefit in taking any side at this time. Only by picking yourself out can you make progress and retreat. If Taoist Dongxian takes action at that time, he will just kill Su Tong. The ancestral home will still belong to their Mei family. But if it can't be killed, this hatred will not fall on the Mei family's head. In today's world, all great masters are considered to be the best, let alone a Taoist. If this mortal enemy were to succeed, their Mei family would be in disaster in an instant. Could it be that everyone has forgotten how Su Tong killed him step by step in Xiangzi not long ago, killing most of the strangers and announcing that Jinping had washed his hands? Therefore, it makes sense that the Mei family can go against the current and seize opportunities in the face of great changes that have not happened in thousands of years, and continue to prosper instead of decline. While everyone was still arguing, suddenly I heard a sneer, "Since this plum blossom inheritance is passed on, whoever gets it will be the owner of Plum Blossom Village, and I want to give it a try." Everyone turned around following the sound and saw Zhang Haisheng walking towards him, staring straight at Su Tong lying under the plum tree. Seeing the strange Taoist charm on his body getting stronger and stronger, Zhang Haisheng's heart was filled with murderous intent, and a layer of frost could not help but appear on his face. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 717. Zhang Haisheng. Oh no. When Gao Zhou saw Zhang Haisheng, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. I saw Zhang Haisheng walking in a Taoist robe. He was still more than 10 meters away from everyone, but the next moment he had already jumped past everyone. Everyone was stunned for a second, and then came back to their senses the next second. Their pupils tightened, and they looked at Zhang Haisheng in front of them, and their hearts were filled with huge waves. Shrink to an inch. Become a heavenly being. Taoist Lingxiu and others were all shocked. They didn't expect Zhang Haisheng to actually take that step. Sure enough, I have been burdened with King Qin's luck for 800 years, Taoist priest Yunjing sighed silently. The rise of Qingcheng Mountain is probably a certainty. Not necessarily. On the side, Master Huigu held a fly whisk with one hand and stood watching coldly. Zhang Haisheng. What are you going to do? Don't forget that we are still on the same team. Gao Zhou stood in front of Zhang Haisheng. But the next second, Zhang Haisheng suddenly raised his palm, and like a phantom, he slapped Gao Zhou's chest directly. The speed was so fast that Gao Zhou had no time to react, and huge power came like a tide. Even though Gao Zhou the zombie's body was also difficult to withstand, and the figure flew backwards like a cannonball in an instant. It did not stop until it hit the stone monument behind and smashed the stone monument. Puff. A mouthful of black blood spit out from Gao Zhou's mouth, and he felt as if his internal organs were about to twist into a ball. Gao Zhou struggled hard to get up, but Taoist Lingxiu held his shoulders down. Stop moving, you will die if you move again. Taoist Lingxiu looked serious. He took out a talisman from his arms and put it on Gao Zhou's chest. The talisman flashed fluorescent light, but within a moment, the talisman suddenly spontaneously ignited and burned to ashes. But even if Taoist Lingxiu took action, it could only alleviate Gao Zhou's injuries, but it would not allow him to move freely immediately. But Zhang Haisheng still stood on the spot with his palm extended, and said expressionlessly, "Not anymore." A 15-second stiffness penalty appeared, but Zhang Haisheng didn't seem to care. Looking sideways at Master Dongxian Taoist, the words that Master Dongxian Taoist said before came to mind. Haisheng, this person must be killed, the road in the future will only become narrower and narrower. After you cut off the path, you will understand that practice is going against nature. The further you go, the narrower the road becomes. If you have more opponents, you will lose one of your opportunities. The road to immortality is a single plank bridge. If you want to walk across this bridge, there is only one word: seize. Take. Take other people's lives, take other people's luck, and achieve your own great deeds. If Xiang Yu had killed Lu Bang at the Hungmen banquet, the world would have been his, but just by mistake, he ended up committing suicide in Wujiang River. The struggle for hegemony in the world is like this, and it will be even more so on the road to becoming an immortal in the future. There is no room for two geniuses in an era, and one of them will always become a contribution to the other's great achievements. After finishing speaking, Taoist Dongxian patted Zhang Haisheng on the shoulder. "My child, don't forget that you are carrying the future of Qingcheng Mountain, and there is no room for any mistakes." His thoughts gradually gathered together, and Zhang Haisheng looked at Su Tong. "Don't blame me, I can't afford to lose." Zhang Haisheng took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Don't hurt my head, master." Before Zhang Haisheng could get closer, several golden lights flew out from behind Su Tong and flew in front of Su Tong. It was De Ya and others. "It's Xian'er." Taoist Lingxiu and others were a little surprised when they saw this. They didn't expect that Su Tong's academic class was so complex that even Northeast Xian'er had one. It's a pity that they are just a bunch of insignificant fairies. Taoist Dongxian couldn't help but shake his head when he saw this. The Five Immortals Hall was once very prosperous, and there were old immortals who had been practicing for hundreds of years. But after all, it was a remote elementary school that could not survive the baptism of time and is now in complete decline. Step aside. Zhang Haisheng waved his hand lightly, and the invisible Taorim spread out in his palm, turning into a shocking thunder. Boom! In the realm of heaven and man, Zhang Haisheng is by no means inferior to Lu Ji. In a strict sense, his strength is even higher than that of Lu Ji. After all, he has gained the true inheritance of Qing Cheng and the supreme power of Taoism to protect his body. Just listen to the thunder. After a while, the wealth and auspicious moments that stood in front of him were knocked back to their original shape. Tianxiao. Suddenly, De Ya appeared from behind the two of them, transformed into a human form, and quickly formed seals with his hands. The void in front of him suddenly changed, and a red moon was reflected in Zhang Haishen's pupils. His body seemed to be pulled into the endless void, and everything around him became blurry. Eight-tailed fox. Taoist Dongxian and others couldn't help being surprised when they saw this. The eight-tailed spirit fox was equivalent to an enlightened old immortal, but how could such an old immortal still be alive in today's world? Not really. Taoist Lingxiu on the side saw it more clearly. Not all of the eight tails behind De Ya were real, but they used some secret method to forcibly raise himself to a higher level. It's just that the price of this secret method is often no joke. She was filled with radiant light, walking on the void, reaching her peak speed, turning into a beam of light, so fast that she left countless after images, and it was impossible to tell whether they were real or fake. Only the cracks torn apart by the sharp claws remained for a long time, as eye-catching as leaving a scar in the air. He is a born spiritual being, and has been nourished by Su Tong's incense and merit for so long. At this moment, he used a secret method to cut off 3 of his own tails. That's not enough. Zhang Haisheng was in nothingness, facing De Ya, who was incarnate and coming to attack quickly. His face was calm, his feet were on the sky, his figure was indistinct for a moment. No matter how fast De Ya was, he could not hurt him at all. Then he opened and closed his big hands and used King Chin's secret technique. His hands were filled with green light, like 2 green dragons. With a single throw of the universe, all things will open up. The 2 green dragons turned into 2 circles of heaven and earth, soared into the sky, and transformed into thousands of things in mid-air, just like a heavy rain falling down. After entering enlightenment, the power of Taoism is so terrifying that everyone is frightened when they see it. The uncles in Miita couldn't stand such authority. They were so dizzy by the aura that filled the air that they had to withdraw from the door and didn't dare to come any closer. Bang bang bang. Countless after-images of De Ya disappeared in an instant under the Qing Huan's fire. His true body was also forced out of his figure, and countless green lights fell. In an instant, even though De Ya was protected by Dharmavajra, he was beaten to the point of vomiting blood and fell to the ground. After a while, his original shape was revealed. When everyone took a look, they saw that De Ya's tail had been severed and only 2 pieces were left. The other severed tails were so bloody that I couldn't bear to look at them. Swish, swish, swish. Seeing Dia fall to the ground, Hejeze, who was hiding in the corner, swarmed up and wanted to avenge Dia. Facing these 5 shimmering fur balls, Zhang Haisheng didn't know what they were. He just waved his long sleeves and a strong wind came from the east, blowing these 5 little guys into the air without knowing what they were blowing. The place has gone. Infinite Heavenly Lord. Taoist Lingxiu couldn't bear it, turned around, faced Master Dongxian and said, "You have to be merciful and merciful. Taoist friends really want to kill them all. If you touch the foundation of Qingcheng Mountain, you must kill me." Taoist Dongxuan's face was expressionless. Since he had already taken action, there was no turning back. If the root of the attack was not eradicated today, the entire Qingchen mountain would be in turmoil in the future. I'm sorry. Zhang Haisheng locked his eyes on Su Tong, stretched out a finger and pointed at the center of Su Tong's eyebrows. Soon after, the moment Zhang Haisheng stretched out his finger, a huge wave of demonic energy suddenly revived and he raised his hand to call out. The pure yang sword came out, and the dark blue demonic flames rushed towards Zhang Haisheng like an overwhelming tide. Zhang Haisheng was caught off guard and had time to parry. Fortunately, the prop card on his body was triggered and activated, forming a colorful shield around him, blocking all the rolling demonic flames. He's awake, everyone was shocked. That's not right, he is still enlightening. Someone with sharp eyes saw that although Su Tong woke up, he still exuded a strange Taoist charm, and what was going on with this shocking demonic aura? This kid is possessed by a demon, Hai Sheng, you must kill him. Seeing this, Taoist Dongxian even opened his mouth to urge him. Kill me. Mordas looked at Taoist Dongxian coldly, and just one look made Taoist Dongxuan's heart turbulent, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. You are not Su Tong, who are you? Zhang Haisheng took 2 steps back, his eyes glowed with fluorescence, and he saw Su Tong's demonic aura in front of him, and a twisted shadow shrouded his body. It was not Su Tong himself at all. A sinister smile appeared on the corner of Motaz's mouth, and he stuck out his bright red tongue and licked the corner of his lips. However, he moved his eyes away from Zhang Haisheng and looked at Taoist Dongxian and other experienced Taoists. Seeing this, Zhang Haishen's expression changed and he stood in front of Taoist Dongxian and others. Don't worry about us, just do it. We old bones, after living so many years, don't care about one more day or one less day. Seeing this, Taoist Dongxian was willing to risk his life. If his life was at stake today, it would be enough to exchange for one of Su Tong's heads. Ken. Zhang Haishen's mind tightened, and he no longer wanted to fight anymore. No matter whether Su Tong woke up or not, the guy in front of him who controlled Su Tong's body was very troublesome. If he takes action again, he can only use the power of the prop card. When the time comes, my master and several uncles will be involved. Just as Zhang Haisheng was hesitating, the entire Qingchen mountain trembled. Kaka kaka. There were actually many cracks in many mountains. Some 1,000-year-old trees seemed to have been pushed up. Their roots were split from under the soil, and the trees were on the verge of collapse. Yueshan Lake. The originally picturesque scenery turned out to be a huge vortex on the lake. In a moment, the water level dropped crazily, revealing ugly rocks and mud. Also implicated are Fequangu and Kuying Lake. These originally beautiful scenic spots have either lost water or the water level has soared, and they have changed beyond recognition. Fortunately, it was late at night and there were no tourists in the mountains, otherwise it would have caused a big mess. I don't know when a thick haze came from the sky, covering the stars, sun, and moon, and many pits appeared inexplicably in the woods of the huge Qingchen mountain. These pits are bottomless and swallow up large tracts of mountain forest. If there is a master who is good at feng shui and can stand on the top of the mountain and look at it at this moment, he will definitely find that at this moment, the entire Qingchen mountain is churning, as if there is an invisible big hand stirring the entire Qingchen mountain. And somehow, at the foot of Qingchen mountain, a huge dao fruit was picked away, causing the overall luck of Qingchen mountain to quickly evaporate. Taoist Dongxian and others had pale faces, and their hearts were bleeding. King Qing's 3,000 years of luck had mostly evaporated in the blink of an eye. Seeing that his luck was still evaporating, Taoist Dongxuan's face turned pale. Fortunately, at this moment, a rusty iron sword hanging in the Tianqi Cave ancestral temple began to buzz, and the iron sword shone brightly. A golden light rose up from the decaying sword body, turning into a golden dragon, and broke free. The restraint shot straight into the sky and turned into a sea-fixing needle, quickly suppressing the evaporating luck. Heavenly Master Sword. It was rumored that it was a treasure left by Zhang Tianqi in the mountain. However, it was a long time ago and the sword body had already decayed. Most people, even the Taoist priests of Qingchen Mountain, only regarded this object as a jewelry and no one cared about it. It wasn't until this moment that I discovered that this object was actually a divine sword that suppressed luck. It is a pity that this sword has been weathered for a long time and no one cares about it. At this moment, it has lost the last ray of spirituality in the sword body. After suppressing the luck of Tianchi Cave, it turned into iron slag and scattered from the hanging wall. In addition to this divine sword, there is a simple small tripod standing on the dome of Lejun Pavilion behind Qingchen Mountain. The small tripod is not big, only about the size of a palm. At this moment, a strange halo was emitted that could not be seen by the naked eye. The halo was getting bigger and bigger, gradually suppressing the restless earth, causing the cracks on the ground to gradually repair, until it returned to calm. Unfortunately, it was getting late and there was no one guarding Lejun Pavilion, so no one witnessed this scene. Oh, no, there are 5 more witnesses who poked their heads out from the corner. They were the 5 furry black Mezons that Zhang Haisheng swept away. There is the Tianchi sword that suppresses luck, and this mysterious little cauldron suppresses the mountains. Qingchen Mountain, which was originally trembling, soon returned to calm, but the luck that had evaporated before could no longer be replenished. It only lasted for a while, adding up to less than 2 minutes. At least the luck accumulated for thousands of years disappeared without a trace. When they realized that so much luck in Qingchen Mountain had evaporated and disappeared, the veterans of Qingchen Mountain were all heartbroken. It's over, my 1,000-year luck in Qingchen Mountain. Several veterans were wailing so heartbroken that they almost rolled on the ground. Luck is the foundation of a religion. As long as luck exists, even if the Taoist temple on the mountain is destroyed, the luck will continue, and future generations will build it again, and the inheritance will not be cut off. Otherwise, why would Lu Ji rather fight to the death than compete with Buddhism for luck? Now that thousands of years of luck have evaporated in one fell swoop, how can they not be heartbroken? Zhang Haisheng raised his head, shocked and angry, and shouted to the sky, "Su Tong, how dare you?" As he finished speaking, he saw Su Tong's pupils in front of him gradually shrinking, and all the demonic energy gathered around him. He looked at Dia, Fasai, Jixiang, and others on the ground. His brows were furrowed for a moment, and there was anger in his eyes. He glanced at Zhang Haisheng sideways. "Zhang Haisheng, you have crossed the line. It's 4,000 words long. Don't say I'm short. There's another update tonight. Infinite script killing." Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 718. There was no anger on Su Tong's face, only disappointment. "I thought we could be friends." Zhang Haisheng said expressionlessly, "If your so-called friend only wants me to be your foil, I think we should become enemies." Zhang Haisheng stretched out his palm, and a green ring appeared on his palm. There are 2 green dragons on the green ring, circling left and right, hiding the universe. Seeing this, Su Tong pulled out the pure yang sword. The scarlet flames clung to the sword, accumulating power. Enough. Seeing that the 2 people were at war with each other and it had reached an uncontrollable level, Taoist Lingxiu finally couldn't bear it anymore and took out a sign from his arms. He didn't know how many years it was on the sign. The dark red cinnabar on it was so blurry that it was almost hard to see clearly. But if you look carefully, you can still vaguely see 3 words on it. "Fellow Taoist Dongxian, this is an official order. If you question the murder, I will take this order as my belief and tell the world that Qingchen Mountain will no longer be a southern Taoist section. It's okay not to do anything about this Lucian days." Taoist Dongxian glared at Taoist Lingxiu coldly. "This person ruined our religious movement and disturbed the foundation of our Qingchen Mountain. How can I tolerate him? Why is Taoist Master Lingxiu shielding him so much? This person has just been infected with demonic energy. He is not a member of my righteous path. If we cannot punish him today, he will definitely become a big trouble in the future. The old Taoist priests in Qingcheng Mountain were full of hostility towards Su Tong from the first moment they saw him. Now I hate this kid even more to death. How could they be content with not killing the sun after 1,000 years of luck was gone in one day? Master Huigo was not happy when he heard this. He held a whisk in his hand and said, "Cultivation of Taoism without virtue is better than cultivating demons in the past. If people do not punish themselves, God will punish them." The luck of Qingcheng Mountain is accumulated by the plum blossom line for many years. People can get their own things, why bother talking to you about Qingcheng Mountain? You can only go in but not out, you are like a fool. This. Master Huigo was really disrespectful when he scolded him, and his words brought the Mei family into trouble, leaving several veterans speechless. What's the difference between cultivating spiritual practice, cultivating virtues, and practicing Tao, and using power to commit crimes and that evil cult? Are we here to see your Qingcheng sect commit murder? Taoist priest Jingyun didn't look good either. This, our Tianqi cave has been canonized by successive emperors of Qingcheng Mountain. It is originally our land of Qingcheng Mountain. An old Taoist was so angry that he really didn't know how to refute, so he simply brought this up. Unexpectedly, after hearing this, Taoist master Jingyun suddenly sneered, "You use the laws of the previous dynasty to control the people of this dynasty? Do you think it is still the Qing dynasty? Or do you think you are the bandits of the Song dynasty who occupied the mountains and became kings?" After saying that, he took out his mobile phone from his pocket and said, "You guys go ahead and call me. I'll call the police. If you lose, you'll lose your life. If you win, you'll go to jail. In this era of rule of law, I still don't believe that I can't cure you." As soon as he heard the call to the police, Taoist Dongxian was about to curse in his heart. Isn't this a rogue act? If you can't beat him, call the police. Seeing this, Zhang Haisheng could only put down his hand and walk to Taoist Dongxian. After whispering in Taoist Dongxuan's ear for a few times, Taoist Dongxian raised his eyebrows and his attitude softened. "Brother Jingyun is joking. The rules of the rivers and lakes, the affairs of the rivers and lakes, the rivers and lakes, but since the three of them have said it, Luo Tianda is about to come, and the poor Taoist does not want to be aggressive. It's just that this person has a complicated academic background and is not a member of my Taoist section. This Luo Tianda is not a member of the Taoist sect. The 7 sects come from Meishan. Luoshan Dazan naturally has a role in Miai's Huang. Su Daiyu inherited Miai's Huang and is the owner of Miai's Huang. Naturally, he has a seat in Luoshan Dazan." The old man Mei spoke up. The old man didn't speak before because the situation was unclear. Now that the situation was clear, the old man quickly seized on Taoist Dongxuan's words and quickly stated his position. After all, the Mei family came from Miai's Huang. Although Zhang Haisheng is today, Mr. Mei does not think highly of Zhang Haisheng. In other words, he is not optimistic about Taoist Dongxian. After all, this person is narrow-minded. Even if his disciple is a peerless gem, he is still a gem in this guy's hands. People who are lucky for a short time cannot be lucky for a lifetime. Taoist Dongxian had already expected what Mr. Mei said, and secretly sneered in his heart, "I'm afraid he won't come by then." But his face still pretended to be gloomy, and he curled his lips, "Then wait for your arrival." As he said that, he was about to leave, etc. However, Su Tong stopped Dongxian Taoist and others who were about to leave at this time. After beating his own people and just letting them go, Su Tong was afraid that he wouldn't be able to sleep well tonight. "How are you doing?" Taoist Dongxian turned his head and looked at Su Tong sideways. "I just heard Su Tong clear his throat. Since I came up the mountain, I have never offended the Taoist priests of Tianqi Cave. But today, the Taoist priests broke into my mountain gate and hurt my disciples. How can I settle this account?" Hearing this, Taoist Dongxian laughed angrily and turned around. I am here, what do you want? After everyone heard this, they secretly cursed Taoist Dongxian for being shameless. If Zhang Haisheng hadn't been standing by, even 10 Taoist Dongxian would not have been able to walk out alive today. Su Tong curled his lips when he saw Taoist Dongxian being so shameless. They say that distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors, but if you are accompanied by this evil neighbor, you don't want this place. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Fellow Daoist Su, be careful. Since you have obtained the plum blossom inheritance, you are the master of this place. Mr. May hurriedly stepped forward and said that he was afraid that Su Tong would not know the reason, so he took the trouble to explain it. Su Tong kept the care of Mr. May in mind, and took Mr. May's arm affectionately and said, Old man, I know that May Xian has made an account with me. Although I inherited May village, the May family from now on my blood is thicker than water. Although Mei Xian has repeatedly promised that he and my Hua Taoist have long agreed that the person who inherits Yanshu will be the master of Mei village, but Mr. Mei can recognize it so readily and stand on his side at the critical moment. I am afraid that this favor will last for a while. Don't even think about it for a while. Since it was still unclear, Su Tong simply stated his position openly, and from then on he had a life-or-death relationship with the Mei family. These words made Mr. May smile and his heart blossomed with joy. The best result could not be better than this. However, Su Tongxiao changed his voice, but, I think the feng shui here is not good, with evil neighbors, making it difficult to sleep and eat well, so I have already discussed with Mei Xian and decided to abandon this place. Ha 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 ha, that's a great feeling. If you want to leave, leave quickly. I won't see you off. When Taoist Dongxian heard this, he laughed so much that he couldn't close his mouth. From now on, it is their Tianchi cave that is rightly named for such a geomantic treasure. Oh, why is this kid so confused? Taoist Lingxiu stamped his feet angrily when he saw this. Qingcheng Mountain was originally the first blessed land of Taoism. What tricks did Taoist Mai Hua use to stay here and occupy this geomantic treasure land? Why did this stupid boy just give it away? You are so young and energetic, Taoist priest Jing Yun pouted and shook his head secretly. But Master Huego still said the same thing, not necessarily. I saw Su Tong patting the old man's hand, then turned around, pointed his hands at the plum tree behind him, and bowed heavily, please come on, Plum Fairy. Thank you Shankao. Zhang Haishan's pupils tightened, and an unknown premonition suddenly arose in his heart. When everyone heard Zhang Haishan's words, their eyes suddenly gleamed. Thanks to Shankao's famous name, everyone in the world doesn't know him or her. Back then, Shuigui used this move to kill all kinds of strangers with blood. Not long ago, Su Tong used this move again to kill people in western Hunan with fear. Now that Beishenko has reappeared in the world, of course everyone must see it clearly. After Su Tong bowed, reality and reality intertwined around him. As the second bow fell, a huge crack opened out of thin air, revealing the ghost market hell, with countless dilapidated pavilions crisscrossed left and right. It wasn't until the huge portal appeared in front of everyone that Zhang Haisheng suddenly realized something. He's taking the tree away. What? Everyone was immediately shocked, paying attention to what Zhang Haisheng said, that he was taking away, not destroying, but how could he take away such a big tree? Kaka kaka. The stone door slowly opened, only to see billowing black water flowing from behind the door. A woman sat cross-legged on a tree, her figure as ethereal as a fairy in a painting. It's her. That strange woman. Taoist Lingxiu and others stared at the eldest princess with wide eyes, and saw the eldest princess nodding slightly to them. Now the three of them, Taoist Lingxiu, looked at each other, and Taoist Lingxiu slapped his thigh. Hey, let me tell you, why have I never heard of this woman becoming a Taoist? She is hiding in this kid's magic. Beishen Kao, this technique is indeed as rumored. It contains the universe and connects yin and yang. Those famous people who were defeated by Shuigui in the past did not die unjustly. Master Huego pinched his beard and looked like he was feasting his eyes. He repeatedly praised this mysterious technique. Although it is sinister, it has the profound meaning of Taoism and the Buddhist concept of one flower, one world. It can be said that it is the best among hundreds of schools of thought. Chang, the strange skills he has created are truly admirable. Taoist Dong Xian no longer had the intention to appreciate this, and stared at Su Tong. "What on earth are you going to do?" Su Tong said without looking back, "Move." After saying that, he saw the black water cracking in front of him, and a huge figure slowly stretched out a palm from behind the gate. On the palm was a huge piece of soil. I saw a big hand sticking out from the door, and everyone felt their scalps numb. What made people even more incredible was that the plum tree actually started to twist. I saw the huge tree trunk torn open, and thick and powerful rhizomes protruded from it and penetrated into the soil in the giant's palm. As the rhizomes penetrated into the soil, a huge plum tree rose out of thin air in the palm of the giant's palm. Another plum tree. Some people didn't understand what happened and just thought it was a plum tree splitting into two. Fortunately, Taoist Links Yu on the side consciously assumed the role of commentator. "No, even if the core of this spiritual tree is really spiritual, this tree is really a treasure in the world. If the core is gone, the courtyard will be empty. This tree inside is just an empty shell." As soon as Taoist Links Yu said these words, Taoist Dongxian and others on the side were all confused. This tree is the treasure of Miai's Huang. It should not be said that it is the spiritual vein of Qingcheng Mountain. This guy wants to cut off all the spiritual veins of Qingcheng Mountain. Heis Hung, stop, stop. Taoist Dongxuan's eyes squinted, and he almost lost his breath. Everyone hurriedly picked up Ren's Hong and fed Taoist Dongxian some elixirs. Finally, Taoist Dongxian regained his breath. Looking again, Dongxian Taoist people's mouths were so angry that they became crooked. Zhang Haisheng hurriedly stepped forward to stop him, but saw the eldest princess and another veteran standing in front of the gate at some point, staring at him eagerly. Two heavenly beings. No, strictly speaking, it is one and a half. After all, the old Taoist soul has not returned to the physical body, so it is not yet complete in the true sense. But with the addition of Su Tong, they can be regarded as two heavenly beings. 1-on-2, if there really was a fight, whether Zhang Haisheng could win or not, I'm afraid I don't know how many lives would be involved. I'm afraid only 1 or 2 out of 10 people would survive. Su Tong was not afraid that Zhang Haisheng would be destroyed. He looked directly at Zhang Haisheng and said, "Actually, as long as you speak, I won't argue with you. But now, I want to compete with you. Luo Tianda will be there 7 days later, and I will let's see how good your Qingqing's 800 years of luck really is." Su Tong's voice was clanking, firmer than ever before, and one could feel the anger in his heart. "I have monopolized Qingcheng for 800 years, but I just don't believe in evil. Since you want to fight, I will fight with you to the end." When Zhang Haisheng saw this, he said no more, turned around and left with his master and others. It was only when I left Plum Village that I realized that all the peach trees outside Plum Village had begun to wither, and the leaves had turned yellow visibly to the naked eye. Not only that, many ancient trees in the entire Qingcheng Mountain seemed to have lost their vitality and became lifeless. When the cool breeze blew, the leaves fell and turned yellow. Seeing this scene, Taoist Dongxian almost took another twitch, and everyone seemed to be dehydrated. Same, can only be carried away. After finally carrying the person back to his residence, before Taoist Dongxian could calm down, he heard a Taoist boy running over in a hurry and kneeling on the ground with a plop. "Master, it's not good, the 9 Immortals cauldron on Lejun Pavilion was stolen." Taoist Dongxian was startled. "What did you say?" "It's the precious cauldron enshrined on the dome of Lejun Pavilion." I just went to check at night and found that the cauldron is gone. Hiss. At this moment, Taoist Dongxian rolled his eyes and couldn't hold on any longer. He lay down on the ground and suddenly convulsed and fell unconscious on the spot. It's nearly 4,000 words, so it's not too short.